28th. A couple of things. Just to let you know, I think there are bathrooms down in this area, and there are, where the exit sign is over there, there are bathrooms as well. You have all been given a question sheet. Please feel free to listen to the presentation, and we'll collect those sheets during the second half of the evening. And if you need more, you have more questions, that's fine. We'll make sure that those are made available for you. I want to announce one event that was to happen on April the 22nd that has been changed. Summerland's Earth Week is from April 22nd to the 27th. Because of the public hearing on April the 22nd, we want to mention this one schedule change. Friday, April the 25th is the free family movie night at Center Stage Theater. Join them at 6 p.m. for a free screening of the child-friendly movie Epic. Come early and get a good seat. I'd like to introduce to you our MC for this evening. Eric Thompson is a Summerlander, and he has agreed with his time for tonight. Eric has a background in television news and has moderated several political debates and community meetings on Vancouver Island and in Ontario, so he is very familiar with this process, and any of you who were at the public hearing would have met him there. So Eric, I'll turn it over to you right away.
Thanks, Mayor. All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for showing up. Nice to see so many young people here tonight. All right, I'm just going to outline the format for tonight's meeting. You should have all received a piece of paper at the door. If you haven't, there is one at the door. There's several, in fact, and pens as well. And the idea is to write down any questions that you would like answered. You don't have to put your name down. You can if you like, but it's not necessary. You can also take more than one sheet if you have several questions. They'll be collected following the presentations this evening, which we'll start things off with in just a moment. You can give your written questions to either Tom or Jeremy. You'll see Tom around here, and Jeremy as well at the front. So you can give them your questions, and then they'll hand them off to me at some point for us to read them out. And we'll be asking people, the questions that you provide, we'll be asking to either staff or council to answer. Ian McIntosh, the Director of Development Services, will start the presentations off in just a moment. He'll be detailing the process to date. Each councillor and the mayor will make a presentation describing their thoughts. And we also have two presentations from a couple of agribusinesses. They've expressed interest in the Prairie Valley lands. They'll be speaking tonight as well. And we'll then, of course, be posing those questions to council or staff, and we ask that with those questions, if you could just provide a question that you would like answered or issue clarified, as opposed to a story. That would be helpful, so I have to read it out. Opinions on the proposed growth strategy, of course, should be saved for the public hearing. That, as you know, is April 22nd. And so that's an outline of what we're going to do tonight. At this point, I'd like to introduce Ian McIntosh. He is the Director of Development Services for the District of Summerland.
Thank you, Eric, and welcome to everybody. I'll be as brief as I can. So basically, what I'm going to do is explain to you how we got to this place tonight. And for that, I need my notes. So the first ever urban growth area adopted in Summerland was done in 2008 with our OCP. It's shown in yellow up on the map. And most of that growth area is focused in the Summerland Hills neighborhood plan area. That's the golf resort area where we were hoping to have a significant development. Since that time, the province has recognized greenhouse gas as a fairly significant issue, and they've passed some significant legislation that we are obligated to comply with. There's Bill 44, which is the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Target Act. Bill 27, the Green Communities Statute Amendment Act. The Climate Action Charter is a voluntary document which we signed if we wanted to get our gas tax rebate money. And we're also a member of the Regional Growth Strategy for the South Okanagan. And we have a Climate Action Plan that we are also implementing. The top priority for Council in 2013 was to complete a growth strategy review. Look at our growth strategy and is it still relevant? Is it still what we want to be heading toward? So we started the program, Where Do We Grow From Here? We hired some consultants through an RFP process to help us with this exercise. They're expert in public engagement. We launched that effort in February of 2013 with a goal of meaningfully engaging 1,000 of our residents, or attempting to exercise or engage 10% of our population. So the www.futuresummerland.com website was launched to track and distribute all the information, and the project was essentially broken into 2 phases. Phase 1 included the visioning and identifying of community values, and phase 2 involved looking at specific growth areas for evaluation. We exceeded our goal of engaging 1,000 residents. In fact, our consultants estimated that we reached 1,300 individuals in this process, and that included more than 100 of our youth in that process as well. It is one of the most comprehensive public engagement exercises that Summerland has ever undertaken. The top 3 community values that were identified through that process, the first one was grow the local economy. I don't think that's a surprise to anyone. The second one was support local agriculture and preserve our farmland. And the third one was to preserve our natural ecosystems. The community actions that were identified to try and achieve those goals, the top 2 were to reduce the urban boundary and develop underutilized lots. And the second was to adjust the urban boundary to include areas close to our existing core. So to try and understand what that meant to people, we identified 13 potential areas for growth in our community. The infill or Seward area was one. There were 5 non-Seward areas shown in blue on that map, and there were 5 areas that had previously been considered for growth within the ALR. That map was mailed out to every house in Summerland, and data was compiled on each of those areas that included their environmental values, their servicing costs, and the number of houses that could be constructed in each one of those areas. There was a tool that was created to try and help people figure out which of those areas might be most appropriate for growth, and there were 10 criteria developed by our consultants. And they included preserving ALR lands, density, developing homes, respecting the ecosystem, keeping servicing costs low, reducing travel by car, reducing greenhouse gases, more walkability, and keeping household costs, transportation costs low, and keeping the cost of society low. When those 10 criteria were ranked by our second survey respondents in order of what they thought was most important, the first one was keeping costs of society low, keeping house and transportation energy costs low, which lined up with their most important goal, which was the economy. Increased opportunities for walking was third, respecting our ecosystem and conservation was fourth, decreasing greenhouse gas emissions was fifth, preserving our ALR lands was sixth, keeping water and sewer servicing costs low was 7, decreasing car travel 8, increasing housing density 9, and at the bottom of the list, developing as many homes as possible on lots. So everybody who filled out the survey could rate those 13 properties as to where they thought growth should be most reasonable to go, and by rating the criteria from 1 to 10 or 0 to 10, the lines on the right-hand side, which I appreciate are difficult to see, would tell you which of those 13 areas most suitably met your criteria with the weighting that you had chosen. So what the survey told us, on the left are the list, the 5 top areas for growth if you rate all those criteria exactly the same. The list on the right shows you what people chose when they weighted all those criteria differently. They can put a 10 on preserving ALR lands and a 1 on greenhouse gas emissions or whatever they wanted. And the 5 top from that exercise are on the right. And you can see when you look there that there's similarities on both sides. The Eneas Creek to Blair Bluff, Quinpool to Eneas Creek, downtown, Trout Creek and Lower Town infill showed up on both lists. So everybody seemed to think that was reasonable. It filled out the survey, as well as when you rate them all the same, it showed the same thing. But there's still some areas there that do not jive. There's the Main Street area, Main Place actually, M-A-Y-N-E Place. Barkville Cook does not show on as lining up with public opinion, who did not pick Deer Ridge and Victoria Road South. So there was a discrepancy in some areas between those. So we had to look at that, and from a staff perspective, we took off the Main Place area because there's only 3 infill potential lots, and you have to bring sewer across the highway, so that just wasn't cost effective. Victoria Road South was also crossed off the list because, again, it was incredibly expensive to bring sewer to those areas. Deer Ridge was half in and half out. We recognize that that's a viable growth area. We believe it should be in the growth boundary, but not until sewer service is brought to that area. And Barkville Cook was added because, again, it topped the list of the objective places that were most suitable based on the criteria. So the guiding principles the staff went through to pick this urban growth area. Obviously, the urban growth area is intended to show where additional growth and density should go in our community. We recognize that the urban growth area should not necessarily include industrial development. Industrial land is often on the outskirts of communities. It doesn't necessarily go well with urban uses, so those could be outside of a tight urban growth area. Also, it does not need to include land-intensive recreational uses such as golf courses, ski hills, or similar recreational uses. Those could also be located outside of an urban growth area. And a very important one for people who own land in the District of Summerland is that the urban growth area changes will not affect existing zoning rights. So if your property has a certain zone today, and it's either included or excluded from the growth area, those zoning rights will carry forward regardless. So the lands that were included in this new urban growth area are the ALR lands from Quinpool to the Blair Street Bluff. That's 64 hectares of land, 157 acres of land that is located in the ALR. The second piece of ALR was the lands in the Barkville Cook area. That's 17 hectares or 42 acres of land, again located within the Agricultural Land Reserve. Exclusions from the proposed urban growth area include the Summerland Hills Golf Resort area in the West Prairie Valley Road. That has been taken out. The Deer Ridge area at the moment has been taken out, but again, it could go back in as soon as sewer service is provided to that area. The Hunters Hill area has been taken out, and again, that's a direct result of the survey respondents. The James Lake Industrial Park has been taken out, and again, that reflects the fact that industrial land doesn't necessarily need to be in an urban growth area. And the Pollock, Pierre, Glen Fir areas, again, they've been taken out because of their proximity to the core, the limited servicing that exists in that area, and the fact that it's incredibly expensive to expand servicing. Exclusions from the urban growth area also include the Crescent Beach area. It's a single narrow access subject to landslip and is pretty much fully developed in that area already. There has been no change to the downtown area with respect to the urban growth area other than those 2 additions that I mentioned. There's been no change to the Lower Town area with respect to the boundary, and there's been no change in the Trout Creek area. So in a nutshell, this new proposal is half the size of what the urban growth area was before. It proposes to exclude 199 acres from the ALR and proposes to include 90 hectares or 226 acres of land into the ALR in the Prairie Valley West part of our town. It does provide growth for 30 to 50 years into the future at our current growth rate, and we believe that it is supported by a comprehensive public process. So that you can see on the screen there that our current urban growth area is the area in yellow, and the red line, I'm hoping you can see that up there, is the change in the proposed reduced urban growth area. And where we're happy to take questions on this later in the program. So Eric, I'll turn that back to you. And clean up my mess.
And just a reminder, if you've just joined us, we do have questionnaires or sheets for your questions at the front as you walk in, if you want to fill out your questions. What we'll be doing is hearing from Mayor Janice Moreno and Council in just a moment. We have two presenters as well, agribusinesses, who are going to share some thoughts with us. Then we'll take a very short break. That will give you time to write out some questions, and then we'll be taking the questions at that point. So right now, I'd like to introduce Mayor Janice Moreno.
Okay, so we're going to turn this over so that you can hear council's opinions, and we'll start as we do at our council table with Councillor Robert Hacking.
Good morning, everyone. Evening. Evening. I had that written too. All right. The review and revamp of our existing urban growth strategy is an important step to addressing significant challenges the district, its residents, and its employers are anticipating, and should enable us to have greater resources to address challenges yet to come. A growth plan for this community that is proactive and objective-driven will enable us to mature in a planned and sustainable fashion rather than a reactive and speculative manner. Our existing plan does not properly reconcile the cost to deliver expected services with our ability to afford those services. And from the perspective of smart planning is an unfortunate example of urban sprawl and leapfrog development. While the urban growth strategy is a visionary document and in and of itself will not specify the policy or describe the execution of its vision, it sets a tone and rationale for how we present our community to prospective visitors, residents, and investors. As we work through this process, my hope is the results will be a vibrant community that is attractive and appealing for our visitors and guests, a sustainable and well-serviced community that brings the benefits of home ownership to a much broader demographic, and a community that presents a sensible case for new commercial, agricultural, and industrial investment and enables the success and stability of our current business operators. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Councillor Ord Robson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mine's a little longer. I've had the opportunity to listen to and read most of the sentiments expressed on this passionate debate on the direction being taken with Summerland's official community plan. After the public hearing March 3rd, I have to say how pleased I was with the respectful submissions. It is very clear that we all love this wonderful community of Summerland and want to retain its unique characteristics. That is why we have chosen to live here. As an elected official, we are tasked with making difficult decisions which can affect and improve our community for years to come. As a council, we have made these decisions over the past 2.5 years, and they have been based on practices that have been a benefit to the majority of our community who elected us to carry out these decisions. It must also be said that we represent all of Summerland: business, industry, agriculture, homeowners, seniors, and youth. We take them all into consideration when making our decisions. Our official community plan is just that, a plan. One of the components of that is to ensure that we grow in a sustainable manner. This plan is out of date and has to be corrected. We have to have growth, and it has to be economical to the taxpayers of Summerland. It is costing us too much to maintain our urban sprawl, and it will continue to cost us more as our infrastructure ages. Our growth since the 1996 OCP has been less than 1% per year. Our 2014 average home assessment is $419,000. Penticton is $372,000. Osoyoos is $364,000. Our assessment is $100,000 higher than any of the communities in the North Okanagan. Why would you come to Summerland to buy a business and a home to raise a family when it is cheaper to go elsewhere? Or for an industry to move its operations to Summerland when housing is too expensive for employees to purchase? Our sprawl has raised our development costs to the point where we are not attracting entrepreneurs to invest in Summerland. We require a balance which necessitates smart growth, building within our present infrastructure from the core out, infilling where available, if available. Prior to the agricultural land reserve, growth in Summerland was proceeding north. From my research, this was due to the land quality. No one has provided documentation that it is Class 1 or Class 2. I do have one document identifying a portion of it as Class 3, which is a reduced range of crops caused by a number of limiting factors. The limiting subclass is AP, A meaning soil moisture deficiency, and P meaning stoniness. Discussions and letters received from former and present owners and leaseholders indicate frost pockets and difficult growing conditions, which has limited its fruit production. In 2005 and 2006, documentation was presented to Summerland Council, the Agricultural Land Commission, and the media by the Association of the Citizens for Summerland. This association resisted the Summerland Hills development on agricultural land in Prairie Valley, and they made significant arguments that the Prairie Valley land in question was in some cases Class 1 if water was available. They also brought in speakers and advocated for smart growth, building from the core out. This documentation is available on the internet. This is one of the reasons over a year ago this council voted unanimously to review our growth area. I reviewed the 2013 property tax revenue. Here's a breakdown of the taxes generated. Residential, $5,392,121. That's 83.34%. Light industry, $119,000, 1.84%. Business, $834,000, 12.94%. Farmland, $46,813, 0.72%. I might add that there are 412 farm properties on the tax roll that make up that 0.72%. I mention this only to indicate where we obtain our tax revenue from. It is from residential and business. Hypothetically, if that was your investment portfolio, would you not be moving some of that 0.72% investment to a portion of your investment that provides a better return? I am not adverse to the farm tax base. I think it is needed to make and continue to make agriculture a sustainable part of Summerland. We do, however, require a balance. And to gain that balance, we need to look at the areas identified in the 2013 Urban Growth Strategy. Agricultural land must be removed to gain that balance. This is a long-term growth strategy, which, with our present rate, can take 30 to 50 years to infill. I want to see continued growth in other areas as well. It may be more costly, but if people want view lots or small acreages and can afford them, they should be made available. We have had a steady decline in growth since the OCP of 1996. Our downtown businesses are suffering from rental costs, taxes, the economy, tourism, shopping outside the community. We have lost several large employers, the BC Fruit Packing House, PRT Summerland Nursery, Kettle Valley Fruits, Summerland Hospital, over the years to name a few. Our tax base relies on industry, businesses, and the residential homeowner. To be a sustainable community, we have to give and take to survive. We need affordable areas to expand an inventory of service lots within the core. The urban growth strategy benefits all by giving back other areas for agriculture. That is what the change to the OCP bylaw provides. I am a supporter of the agricultural industry and the agricultural land reserve. I was born and raised a farm boy, so I know the value of farmland. I have been lucky enough to live in various areas in this province where farming is a mainstay. It is part of Summerland and makes Summerland what it is today, and will be for years to come. Sacrifices have to be made by all. I don't think it was the intent of the Agricultural Land Commission in 1973 to put restrictions that hold us hostage, unable to make changes to accommodate affordable growth that will see communities suffer and slowly die. Changes for progression have to be made. I think it is important that we work together as a unified community to make equitable changes that will benefit everyone. This bylaw requires 3 readings, and proper legislative procedures must be followed to ensure that as a council, we receive and listen to concerns raised. We must also maintain due diligence as elected officials in protecting and advancing all of the sustainable amenities in our community. Thank you.
Councillor Peter Waterman.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Moderator, and fellow councillors. When we started this process, I was interested to see and hear what our consultants, Sustainable Solutions, had to say and to participate in the process. As we moved forward, it became clear that a significant position was being developed that included consideration of the removal of a large block of agricultural land from the Agricultural Land Reserve. Previous discussions and official community plans, specifically the 1995-96 plan and the 208 official community plans, did not include development of agricultural land in the Agricultural Land Reserve. As the process moved forward, I've heard no compelling argument for the removal of this land. As an aside to this discussion, I need to mention that from 1970 until 2010, I held a professional agrologist certification and worked as an extension horticulturalist or advisor to tree fruit and grape growers in British Columbia, and in particular the Okanagan Valley, as well as operating 18 acres of high-density apples and cherries myself. The land slated for exclusion is high-quality Class 2 and 3 land, according to the Canada Land Inventory. It also falls within another criteria determined by the research station staff here in Summerland. They have determined that land within 5 kilometers of Okanagan Lake has the most suitable growing conditions. The land slated for inclusion, of which approximately 3/4 is Class 4 to 7, is on the periphery of this distance. Nearest edge is about 4.5 clicks from the lake, plus a considerable move up in elevation. There is a small portion of this area that is Class 3 soils. In general, in no way are the soils comparable and the areas are not horticulturally equivalent. Over time, climate change, perhaps over the next 50 to 100 years, will make this land more acceptable for general horticulture, tree fruits and grapes in particular. I grant that, and I've used that argument in the past. Climate change is certainly upon us. As the discussion moved forward in our process, the argument was made that concentric development from the core was an essential part of a good plan. Unfortunately, that argument does not take into account the geography nor the uniqueness of soils and the proximity to the lake. It has been stated that we need residential growth to supply property tax to allow remediation of existing infrastructure, as well as the maintenance of the proposed infrastructure. There's an extensive cost of community service study which disagrees with this premise. For every $1 of residential property tax received, maintenance and replacement costs are about $1.20 at a minimum. Our senior staff has had access to this information, and they've made no reference to this date. The mill rate for commercial business is approximately 2.7 times that of residential. Our primary focus needs to be on economic growth, which will then drive the need for residential growth, not the other way around. I must state that Council is considering some major projects which will help with our overall income. It's not relying specifically on property tax, which will be a bonus for us. But in relationship to the economics of things, I'd like to indicate that tree fruit land in particular, which I'm more familiar with in terms of actually running and operating an orchard. In particular, the costs of production that are contributed through the operating cost is $4,000 to $5,000 per acre to the local economy. So even on my 20 acres, 18 to 20 acres, I was contributing a minimum of $80,000 a year to the local economy. I don't think that's to be sneezed at. That was one grower contributing that amount. At least you're not throwing anything like apples. Now I'd like to make the point that this is a steady contribution, regardless of the recession, regardless of the ups and downs, regardless of the weather, regardless of prices. The growers have the same costs year after year, essentially. The only cost that change is whether they have fewer bins, because the picking costs will go down. Everything else stays about the same. Those costs are operating costs. And recently the question was asked of me, if I was to start a business in Summerland, what would I do? I answered it really easily. I'd grow apples. The reason being that this year's price for ambrosia, which was one of my key varieties, the average house price is 48 cents a pound. And my orchards grew 60 bins to the acre, which is 48,000 pounds, which is $23,000 an acre. It's almost illegal. So, you know, the cost coming off of that, $4,000 or $5,000, leaves me with the calculated net that I'm sure you can figure out. So, you know, that extra money over and above my costs were also going into the economy because I spent it all. I got a sports store for a garage, and I like to play golf, and that's about it. And I sold a car recently and bought a scooter, so I'm offsetting my golf costs by lower transportation costs. Anyway, we do have a steady contribution, and if I'm not mistaken, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but the 200 acres we're talking about here is irrigated acres, and it's not a percentage of the total 7,000 that we have to consider here in terms of arable land or land within a reserve. It's the number of irrigated acres, which I believe is somewhere around 3,200 acres. So that's a consideration. And the rationale that you know, we have costs in the sector that contribute, but the city doesn't have nearly the costs of infrastructure and farmland that it does in other portions of the city. So anyway, Madam Mayor, that's almost enough. As I stated earlier, I've heard no compelling arguments that can in any way justify the removal of these high-quality lands from the agricultural land reserve. Just because I'm good looking.
Thank you, Your Worship. My personal motivation for going forward with this future planning issue for Summerland is the fact that the current OCP is based on one that was done in 1996, almost 20 years ago. Lots of things have changed in the past 20 years, including the fact that municipalities installed a sewer system, improved the water supply, and our water system. All this was done after the OCP was done in 1996. There has been very little growth since the inception of the OCP, but we have invested greatly in the above-mentioned facilities with growth in mind, and yet we are not taking advantage of their potential through any sort of proper planning, but instead we continue to sprawl. In my view, we can't continue down this road and be sustainable. So I thought a look at where we should go, will be going in the future by a non-biased planning group with input from our community would be a good idea. This was done over a period of a year, and we are here today to talk about these results. I will continue to listen to all on this issue and look forward to making my part of the decision on April 28th. Thank you.
I'm Janice Perino, and what I'm going to share with you tonight is my opinion. No counselor has seen this presentation, and all of the data has been checked numerous times for accuracy. This presentation will be available on the website tomorrow. If you connect to our www.summerland.ca, if you have any trouble, Karen Jones will be able to help you to connect. If you want to check something, call her anytime. Okay, my goal is actually, I'm going to try to take this thing off just because it's a little bit easier. My goal is to explain why I originally agreed to the urban growth strategy process from the beginning and why I voted in favor of this plan back in December. In fact, some of this will answer some of the comments from the public hearing. All 7 of us agreed that a proper review of the urban growth boundary was needed. When we talk about land issues, we know it's going to be contentious no matter what it is. Trout Creek is always going to be a big one. The Summerland Hills was huge. In fact, someone said to me tonight, is this the most contentious issue that you've ever faced? I said, no, in fact, it was Summerland Hills. Whenever you talk about land, it gets contentious. So, gee, I hope you guys go away really soon. So I said to all of the council, are you sure you want to take this on? And they all said, absolutely, we need to. And I was very pleased to see that. What I liked about the process for me was that back in 1996, the OCP was developed by a small group of people. In 2008, again, a small handful of people made the decision for our future. The process that we used this time, at least we knew that 1,000 people had been talked to. We knew that everyone and anyone who wanted to be involved could be involved. Did they all get involved? Absolutely not. But at least we gave everybody the opportunity, which was a first. I want you just to see exactly what Ian showed you. All of the white area is Summerland, including Crown Land. And as you can see, the one part that's, oops, Ian, let me see. I need the stick. I need the stick. Thank you. Okay, so as Ian explained, this is what is currently our urban growth area, and what we put in was the Summerland Hills back in 2008. The Summerland Hills area was a good idea. It was a major championship golf course, an executive size golf course. It was 1,000 homes, an entire village, hotel. The potential was incredible, and it was fabulous. When the project died, really, do we really want to grow there? And that's what we had to decide as a council, because for me, this is urban sprawl at its largest. It is so far past, and in fact, just to give you some idea, just to get to the sewer to Deer Ridge up Morrow Avenue, it's $2.5 million for the developer. Certainly the community cannot afford to do that. So it's up to the developer to do that. You can imagine what it costs to take services to the Summerland Hills area. And that's why we all said, this plan has to change. We have to find another place for Summerland to grow. Okay, for me, way back, I need to think about why am I doing this? Well, I had 2 major considerations, of course. The first one was Summerland's population and how that is affecting all of us. Certainly the economics of our community. And then finally, I want to take some time to answer some of the questions that I've heard in the community that I think many of you share, and I know you're going to have several more tonight, so that's good. All right, let's take a look at the population. Back in 1991, we had a population of 9,253 people. 5 years later, that population grew by 1,331. I mean, that's like 15%. That is quite a leap. And we're not used to that. I mean, that's 3% per year. And we talk about a minimum healthy growth rate of about 2%. So that 3% was major for Summerland. And, that's where it was. I think David Finnis stood up at the public hearing because he was on the OCP review for the 1996, and he said we were going to save farmland. So that was why the OCP was done the way it was, and you'll see how growth was affected since then. 5 years later, growth was definitely affected. We grew by 129 people. That's not 1%, that's just barely above zero. That was in 5 years' time. 5 years later, we grew by an additional 115 people. 5 years later, 2011, we grew by an additional 452 people. Remember that was the boom years, that 2005 to the 2010 were all those boom years, and that's all that we grew. So in 15 years' time, we grew by 696 people, or 6.5% in 15 years. That's low. That is very, very low. Remember, I don't know about you, but when you see how your costs and taxes have gone up, that's low. I mean, we all carry this burden together. Okay, so I'm always one who likes to compare what's happening just down the highway. So let's take a look. Asoyas, during the same period, the same 15 years, has grown by 20.5%. Oliver has grown by 12.5%, so, not quite 1% per year, but certainly double what we were. Peachland has grown by 15%, so about 1% over, each year of the 15 years. And we often talk about Lake Country. Lake Country is one of those communities that's very close to a big urban center. It's very similar to ours. We often talk about them in government issues, and they've grown by 35%. I shudder to think how they handled that one, but that's what growth is happening like around the valley, and we missed all of it. Maybe not such a bad thing, but that's okay. That's okay. That's okay. And you know what? I get it. For a lot of people, that's good to have. So let's take a look at the school enrollment. Now, one thing I want to tell you is that between 1998 and 1999, the middle school opened and the grades changed, right? Remember that stage? So that's why you see it went from 822 to 665. Our Summerland High School has a capacity rate of 650. If you follow it all the way down, we are currently at 449. When I first became mayor, I went to the high school, spoke to the principal of the day, and I said, tell me what's happening, tell me what you need from council, tell me what your problems are and your worries and your concerns. And he said, you better get families in here fast. He said, I don't know if you realize that, but we're declining between 25 and 50 students a year. He said, when they get to 200 students, they're going to talk about closure. And as you can see, we're headed in that direction. I asked one of the school trustees to get me a form to talk about all of their long-range facilities plan. And they use this word called decommissioning, where they decommission space as they need to. And believe me, they talk about Summerland Secondary High School and decommissioning space, and that's one of the concerns. So how much is that dropped off? Well, in 13 years, our school enrollment has dropped by 32.5%. Now, yes, it has dropped everywhere. Remember that our population is, we're all aging, even though we all look like we're 21. It's definitely an aging population, but still, there are schools that are doing really well. And if you look at our numbers, Trout Creek is actually one of the best, and it's because we've had so many new families moving in there. But it's a concern. We have to keep our schools strong. So, for me, it's the little things. And I know exactly what you're going to say when you see this. The Summerland Lions Club is gone. They gave, during their entire tenure, $250,000 towards this community's parks and recreation. They were a very strong club. My father was a member of that club for many years and loved it. They were around 50, 60 members, I think, in their prime, and they're gone. And you might be saying, hey, volunteerism is down, clubs are down. But you know what? Every one of those communities that I talked about, all their clubs are doing okay. It's amazing. Ours have really dropped off. The Kiwanis Club, I remember one member asking me to come and speak when I worked at the cancer agency. And he said, I really have to apologize. There's only about 60 people out to hear you speak. And in fact, today they're down to 12 members. So there's quite a decrease. Everyone in this room knows about healthcare and the different family services offered by the government, and many of them have been lost to Penticton, one of them that we're dealing with right now. This is the way it goes. When you don't have the people to support, they take the services and they go to the bigger centers. It's been a concern of ours all along, and you don't want to be too dramatic about it, but it is a reality that we're all well aware of. A gentleman talked to me last week, and he said that his daughter was in a particular sport that used to be offered at this high school, can't do it anymore, so she has to travel up to Kelowna to be part of a team. It's happening all over our community. Let's take a look at the economics, because I think that's important. 30 to 50 years ago, I remember this well, when I was a kid, we used to camp here, and Summerland was, talk about a booming farming community, absolutely booming. We had 3 packing houses, we had a number of canneries, we had hundreds, if not thousands of people involved in the farming industry. And this town's strength was its farming. And everyone in this room knows that there have been a lot of changes. Our packing house today is a storage house. We don't have any canneries left. And there are not hundreds of people involved. And I think that farming is still an incredible business. I think you're going to see some advancements in farming like we've never seen before, still to come. And that's the good news story. So it's all good, but that's where it's changed. Every one of you has seen several of our stores in the downtown that are closed. Some are doing really well. There's no doubt about it, while others are barely opening and struggling to survive. And many of them I've talked to over the last few weeks. Many of us know a handful of stores that have been lost over the last 15 years, and it is tough when you see a Willowbrook Lane leave town. I don't know if you're aware, but they actually had that store for sale for a long time and could not sell it. A successful business sells. And I know, we can blame it on health, we can blame it on management. If it's a restaurant, we can blame it on food. There's 1,000 things you can blame it on, but a successful business sells. They don't just close the doors and walk away, and that's what many of our businesses in the downtown have done. And I don't know about you, but I have never seen a McDonald's franchise close their doors. It is so rare. It is one of those things that I was told clearly we do not have the population base, and I'm telling you, I'm going to give myself full permission. I'm going to Dairy Queen every single day. The moment they're open, I'm going to be there for something just to keep that business going, because they're going to need all the support that we can give them. Okay, one of the things that people I think don't realize, we always think of ourselves as a small rural community. In fact, we're massive. As you saw with that whole white center that Ian showed you in the first slide that I showed you, Summerland is 69 kilometers. That is the exact figure. This community, over the past 20 years, we've put a lot of money into our community, and in fact, it totals more than $100 million, including some of these projects. Now, I know that many of you didn't vote for some of these. Remember that we often had you voting where we had to borrow money. So maybe you didn't want the RCMP, or maybe you didn't want the water treatment plant, maybe you didn't want the thirst dam, or maybe you didn't want the roads. Do you know what? I have never played baseball or soccer in my adult life, but I'll tell you that when we did a rec questionnaire out to the public, it ranked as #1. So we spent $1 million putting those in there. Those are the things we have done in the last 20 years. That's where the $100 million has gone in some of the bigger investments. And a lot of people are very happy that we've done it. Let's talk about this a little bit more. What are we going to need over the next 20 years? Well, I can tell you that too. Our pool is 30 years old. It's going to last maybe another 10 years. That's it. It will cost $8 to $10 million to replace it with the full rec center. And in fact, to give you a comparison, the RCMP building cost us $4.5 million. So you can imagine that a pool would be double that. And I can tell you that as much trouble as we had getting the pool here back in the 70s, you will be sick if you're a user of that pool to see it close. But the day will come, and it's not too far down the distant future. All right. Number one complaint that I've had in this term is on Garnet Valley Road. Many of you who live there say, I'm sick of the potholes, I'm sick of the dangers, there's no shoulder, there's no water. The water situation down there, of course, is so troubling. And the road is going to cost us $4.5 million to do all the water repairs and change the road over. Many of you know Giant's Head. Again, a lot of work is needed on that. Canyon View is an interesting road. And the far end of Hesper, there are children walking in areas that are completely unsafe. These are the roads that we have to look at and address over the coming years. Obviously, there's maintenance on all of the infrastructure that we already have. And so, realistically, some staff have said to me $50 million for the next 20 years is not gauging enough. But we've spent $100 million in the last 20 years, so I figure that at least $50 million for the next 20 is at least in the range. Why does it cost so much money? And one of the councillors talked about, the cost of what it costs to maintain a particular road where people live. Well, let's just take a step back. When we say to a developer, you heard me say that the developer to get the development to Deer Ridge for the sewer so that we can do the second phase of that development. We've only sold 7 homes in 20 years in Deer Ridge. 20 years, only 7 homes have been built. So we talk about that as an infill area. Well, it's not infilling very fast. It costs $182,000 to do 100 meters of road. For those of you who are not into meters, that's 328 feet or 1 block. That's what it costs to build. So we put that cost onto developers, and that's why developers need to build where it's the least expensive, because the further out they go, the more expensive it gets. So to get to Deer Ridge, you can imagine what it costs. To get to Summerland Hills, you can imagine what it costs. So if we stay with the status quo and we put all of our urban growth into the Summerland Hills area, do you really think we'll ever get development at all? All right. To maintain that block of road, that 328 feet, the 100 meters, it is about $1,524 per year. So that's for everywhere, and you'll be shocked at how much we actually maintain. One of the councillors said that, yes, $1.20, and I agree. In fact, another gentleman wrote us about that a few weeks ago. But guess what? In Deer Ridge, it's probably considerably more than that. And Summerland Hills, it would be considerably more than that. And it's more than that to do, Trout Creek, it's further out. Wherever we expand, wherever we sprawl to, it costs more. That's why we're talking about growth in the core of town. How big is Summerland? 177 kilometers of road. I always remember Dave Hills used to say, if you just lined our roads up one lane, it would get you right through to Revelstoke. To give you a comparison, Penticton has 3 times our population. They have 222 kilometers of road, according to their website. So we're not all that much smaller. The total maintenance cost in 2013 was $2.6 million. That's what it costs. Well, let's take a look. Where does that money come from? Our total tax revenue that we use this for all of government. These councillors, as you know, are highly paid. Yes. Every person on our staff, all of our municipal staff, all of the road work, any building of new roads, sidewalks, boulevards, of course, drainage, all of our emergency services, including our CMP, our fire department, and all of our recreation comes out of that $6.5 million. Let's take a look at who pays it. Any of you who live on a residential home, in a residential home, on a residential lot, not on a farm. This is not on farmland. You are paying over $5 million. Your taxes to this municipal government equals $5,118,057. We, the residents of this community, pay 79% of the total taxes. 79% of that $6.5 million. Commercial. This is really the fascinating part. Commercial, of course, is all of our downtown, our industrial, any business, of course. 15% of the $6.5 million, or $963,750, is paid by them. A gentleman said to me last week, I could not believe this statement, he said, let the downtown die, let it die. Farming is the way to go, just let the downtown die, don't worry about it. They're dead anyway, everybody's traveling to the north, everybody's traveling to the south. I felt like saying to him, are you kidding? Do you know that for every $1 you pay to live in a resident house, right, where those taxes that you pay, a business pays $3. For every $1 I pay towards the tax in my residential home, the business pays $3. Do you know that your Summerland Healthcare Auxiliary in that thrift shop, not a single paid employee, they donate every single dime, pays their full business taxes like every store in the downtown core? Those people are my heroes, because without them, guess who would be paying the taxes? The residential community. It's pretty shocking. The white piece is our farming. 6% of the 6.5 is paid by our farms. $383,000. Let's take a look at that white part a little bigger. Okay, there are 450 farms that we are well aware of now, about 3,900 acres of land that are in what is called the Class 9. That means they're receiving the special taxation because they are earning past their threshold. That total of 415 farms brings in the $383,000. Where does the $383,000 come from? The residential piece that you see are all of the homes on the farms. So one man stood up at the public hearing and he said, well, put more homes on the farms. And you know what, he's right. I mean, it makes sense, but of course that would take away from farming. So the residential pay 268 of that 383. The businesses, those are our wineries. That's why council gets so excited when we hear about wineries, because look at the taxes that they pay. I mean, I'm just like, whoa, another sidewalk can be built. And the farmland pays $47,282. Let me make this a little more graphic for you. This is one scenario that's so easy to show you because it's right side by side, and I want you to see exactly what I'm saying. A and B. A, as you can see, is a farm. It is an active farm, 9.5 acres of land. The tax notice, now we talk about the tax notice, and when I say tax notice, I'm talking about the municipal tax, RDOS, regional health district, right, the regional hospital district. I'm talking about the library board and the school board. So that's your tax notice. That entire farm, which has 2 homes on it, pays the municipality, remember that $6.5 million? They pay towards that $713. Let's take a look at the B, right beside it. It's about 3/4 of an acre smaller. Total area is 8.75 acres. The total tax notice, remember, that's municipal tax, RDOS, RHD, school board, library. Hope I'm not going too fast. That was $173,539. The municipal piece that pays for government and our roads and our sidewalk and our, right, all that fire department, everything, $71,593. Okay? Okay, let's go back. So here's where it gets really tough. So if I say to you, oh man, we're going to raise your taxes by 1%. Well, what does that bring in to put towards that $6.5 million? $67,000. I don't know about you, but that would not pave the parking lot. And when we say to you, oh, we're going to tax you 2%, it's going to be $134,000. That would pay for the cement around the school. That's how little it is. That's why you have to have a combination of things to bring in the money. And I'll show you more about that. But taxes just doesn't cover it alone. It doesn't cover it alone. We need to have a lot more residences to help with the burden so that we all share. But I wanted you to see that. And I have to ask you the question. I don't know about you, but I didn't get a 2% increase on my salary from the hospital. Many of you know I work as well at the hospital. I didn't get a 2% increase. Did any of your pension plans give you a 2% increase? I don't think so. So, you know, how much more can you stand? Because we've got $50 million to take care of over the next 20 years. Now, if you're old like me, you might not have to worry about it, but on the other hand, we're placing that in the hands of our children. And I don't think our community can stand much higher taxes, and that's why since I've sat at the table, I will not vote for high taxes. I don't believe in it, never did, never will. Okay, here's some of the questions I've heard, and we're going to go through this a little bit. So you got to be asking, what are we doing to secure our future? And lots of people have asked us this. Well, the new industrial area on Bentley Road, it's been about 18 months now that they've been done, and those jobs will come. And I think many young families will come for those jobs in the Bentley Road industrial. I see nothing but good news there. So that's coming, but it takes time. We planned ahead, it takes a lot of time. It's going to be about another 3 years before you see probably a single job, but it will come. But it took us time to do it, and you got to take the time to do it. That's why you do planning in advance. We are pursuing the opportunity of gravel cells. I want to warn you that this is, number one, a good news story. Number two, it will be a bit painful, I think, for some of you. But the fact is, we can sell gravel to construction in this area and construction all over this area, and we have tons of gravel. We said that we did a check on this, had a company come in and look at our gravel sales, and they said that for our own Summerland Leaf as well, you'll laugh at this, we have 33,000 years worth of gravel. So we're okay. So we at least think that that will help us maybe with some of our projects. One of the first projects that I'd like to see done is extend the sidewalk up Prairie Valley so those children getting to Giants Head are a little bit safer. We worked with the Chamber of Business on a relocation guide and video so that we present ourselves to the world in a positive light. The Chamber's been outstanding, incredible group to work with. We have invested with an ad with Invest BC, a provincial publication, to let people know how good Summerland is. We think it's paradise. We wanted to share that message. We participated in the Venture Connect program, which is a program to help people to sell their business and for those who want to buy it. And it's a good program to be involved in. I'm very excited about that. A woman wrote in last week and said, "Why don't you revitalize the downtown?" Great idea. Guess what? There's no money to revitalize the downtown. We can't do it. Your government can't afford to revitalize your entire downtown. But what we have done is we did rezoning, so we can allow more up and tighter business opportunities and in the downtown core. We won a national award on that. We have a new downtown design guidelines. We said to people, the Tudor theme is gone. For goodness sakes, make your buildings bright and beautiful, go ahead. And we even did it to the fire hall so that people would see what a beautiful building could look like. And I've had more and more owners say to me, "I'm sorry, there's not enough business here to warrant painting my store. There's not enough business here to warrant me putting on new windows. There's not enough business here for me to spend any more money than just keeping my doors open." It's very sad. And you just think, wow, we could do so much. Our downtown is so incredible. We are continuing to market Wharton Street. Wharton Street will have a combination of hopefully commercial as well as some residential. No, it's not families. Obviously, families are going to want single-family homes, which is part of the plan that we're looking at. But I think Zoomers will love it. I think young professionals will love it. Zoomers are those that are sort of in my range and above that are healthy young seniors. I think definitely there's a market for that. We will continue. It's going to take a number of years, but maybe in 10 years' time we might see a building up. It's possible. And of course, the new library. At the current time, we're trying to get through some of the environmental hurdles, obviously, but that new library down at that end of town will help to bring business down there. So we're very excited about that. All right, some more questions. If I own land in the ALR growth area, do I have to move? Heavens, no. Stay there as long as you want. Nobody has to move. People have said to me, "Oh, I'm going to have to move," or worse, will my taxes go up? No, your taxes will not go up. As long as you are farming, it doesn't matter whether you're in the ALR or out of the ALR. As long as you're farming, your taxes will not go up any more than what is the general. Okay, I should say it that way. All right, Ian's going to come up here and help me with something. Farm as long as you want. This was meant to be a 30 to 50 year plan. I'll be long dead. Most of us will be at the table. It's okay. Farm as long as you want. Farm for centuries. We don't care. We just know that growing in the core of town is the least expensive and has the best possibility of bringing in affordable homes. So we're not trying to get anybody to stop farming. So anybody who thinks they have to, you don't. Okay, everybody has said to me, there's a lot of homes. There's a lot of homes out there. Let's infill. Ian, can you take us through? Do you want to sit there, or how do you want to do it?
I'm not done yet. This is just a little change of pace, that's all. So the infill numbers have come around a few times, and I wanted to explain to you how we came to those numbers that you've been seeing around. And there was 13 areas, as I explained before, that we looked at. The infill areas are based in the yellow area that you see on the screen here. That's the current sewered area where you can subdivide a lot in half, put in a new sewer connection, and redevelop if you wanted to. So I'm going to go through these maps pretty quickly because I don't know if you can see them up there. We will have it on the website. It'll be much clearer. But we went through all of town with our staff. We looked at all the large lots, any one that could be subdivided under the new RSD1 rules, the smaller lot size, without demolishing the existing house. We counted those up. And in the Cartwright area, there's 69 potential lots in that area. In the Quinpool West, there's 6 potential lots, and again, they're noted on the map there. I don't think you can see those. Jubilee Peach Orchard, there's 38 potential lots, and you can see in this area here, that's the RCMP, former RCMP property that has a potential for 15. We're just working on that at the moment. 21 potential lots in Lower Town North. We've got 6 in Lower Town South. There's 6 in the downtown south area, and Victoria South there's 8. Now when we move into Trout Creek, in Trout Creek North, there's 63 potential lots there. You can see there's room for 8 up in this spot. We've got 35 here adjacent to Powell Beach, and some infill in between. And there's 78 potential lots in the south half of Trout Creek. And again, that's the Joy property here that's currently under development. That's the Hunt property here, this is the Davis property, this is the Woodbridge property. So, and Marilyn Hanson's property was on the slide above there. That's this one, number 8 there. So those are some of the lots that have potential. So when you add those all up for the infill in the Seward area that we already have, there's a total of 295 potential lots if everybody who was on that list wanted to subdivide and build another lot or 2 or however many on their property. So staff did a subjective determination as to what is the likelihood that those are all going to develop. We don't believe 100% of them will. And our subjective determination was there's about half of those that will, we believe are likely to develop. So there's about 150 infill lots that could be created through subdivision in the Seward area under the current RSD1 rules as of today. This question's come up numerous times, and our staff has spent a significant amount of time in the last 3 weeks trying to nail this down for everybody. And we went to the Agricultural Land Commission, we went to the Ministry of Agriculture, we went to the Ministry of Environment, and we finally ended up at our own local Pacific Agri-Food Research Center, who has mapping in this regard. And thanks to our staff for getting it onto our GIS system so we can actually look at this. And I'll try to explain it as quickly as possible. The agricultural capability is a province-wide designation. Basically in Summerland, we start at class 4 and go up because we're a desert and without irrigation you can't grow much. And class 1 through 3 is located in the Fraser Valley. Now when you improve the agricultural capability for Okanagan specific and you assume that it's being irrigated, then the agricultural capability improved goes from class 1 to class 7, which is what I think most people are referring to. So those classes are not provincial-wide, those are Okanagan specific. So when you look at the agriculture improved or Okanagan specific soil classification for the Quinpool to Blair Bluff area, this is what shows up on their map. And it's primarily class 3, as you can see this green stuff here. There's a bit of class 2 in this area, there's a bit of class 2 over here, and predominantly the class 2 is above the Blair Street Bluff. When you look at the Barco Cook area, it's pretty much all class 2, except for the very steep slope down to East Creek and the Peach Orchard Road, that's a very steep bluff. And then when you look at the Prairie Valley West area, you can see that a small portion over here is class 3. There's a little bit in there that's class 3. A little bit in there. The rest of that area has no classification at the moment. Now we knew that wasn't going to be good enough. So we went and we looked at the only other piece of information that we have, which was an agrologist report that was done when the Summerland Hills Golf Resort was in front of council. They did an agricultural study, and the information that they provided on the area in the yellow dotted line, which is the whole ALR piece, and not the part that we're considering right now, and about, looks like 54% of that was class 4 or better, and 46% was class 6, but that's the whole area. We're just looking at this part over here. So we zoomed in on that, and when we looked at the study, there's this portion is class 3, this is class 3, this is class 1, and the rest is class 6. So that is the numbers out of the Summerland Hills Golf Resort agricultural study. So when you take that, approximately 60% is class 6 of that area, and 40% or 35% of that is class 3 or better. So 35% is class 3 or better, 20% is class 6, and the rest of it is unclassified. And if you can see, we took those, if I can just back up one slide here, this information that we got off the Summerland Hills Golf Resort, we turned into the same colors as the rest. So you can compare and you can see that that's the classification for the information that we have. And certainly 40%, 45% of it has no classification at the moment.
Guy's tall. Okay. We're not going to, I know there's one more here that talks about food security. We can bring that up if you want it. It's here, we've got that. I want to make sure that everyone realized that the land that's being proposed to be out is 199 acres. We wanted to make sure that we put in that or more. It's 226 going back in. I want you to know very clearly, everybody talks about, man, you're going to pave over the earth. And what does a healthy 2% look like for a community like ours? Well, believe it or not, if we haven't in close to 20 years, grown at a 2% rate, but if we grew 2% starting today for the next 15 years, we still would only just be at 15,000. That's how slow growth is. It's not very much. We'd still be less than half the size of Penticton, so that's the good thing. The one thing that I wanted to say to you very, very clearly is I voted for this back in December because Summerland requires a change. When you sit in the chair of the mayor, you get to hear an awful lot of things, and this community is definitely in need of a change. And what we've been doing has not worked. It has not worked. We have to have some change. There is no way that we can continue on in this pattern, whether I'm sitting in the chair or anybody else is. We're going to have to make some changes. This plan does secure agriculture for the long term because it's on the outskirts of town. In town, we grow families. We grow our farming community all around us. And the business of farming is to be kept strong and healthy, and that's exactly what we want to do. We're trying to bring affordable homes to town. This plan definitely showed it, and that's why I voted for it back in December. Most important, it's a plan for 30 to 50 years. It is affordable, it's sustainable, and by far it's the best solution that we could take into the future. So I look forward to hearing you at the public hearing, whatever you want to say. If you can, give us more information about what you know, that would be fine, and I will be making my decision on, of course, April the 28th. So I'm going to put it back onto Eric. Eric, they're hot. Come on, they're hot. So, thank you so much.
So just a reminder, we have two quick presentations. These will be very quick, I believe under 5 minutes. Someone asked me earlier about a slide that said that the presentations would be 5 minutes. We just double checked that. It actually said there would be a 5-minute break. So for the record, the presentations, there was no time limit set on them. But I believe that was probably the longest presentation of the evening. So now we have two agribusinesses who will come up and do some quick presentations. Then we'll take a very short break, and then we'll get into the Q&A part of this evening. So first up, we have a representative from Dirty Laundry Vineyard.
Myself and three of my business partners arrived into Summerland. And people ask, well, why did you choose Summerland? And over about the obvious that I've now come to appreciate, the very obvious thing to us, but unobvious at the time, was that it's in a centrally located part of this valley between Kelowna and Penticton. And as a business owner, when you're looking to establish a brand new business venture that we've never actually been in as current wine owners, you want to be in the hub of transportation. And whether you guys really realize it or not, Summerland is right in a beautifully located area, the hub of transportation. And when we started to establish a business interest here, we looked around, we found a wonderful little winery, at that time just renamed Dirty Laundry Vineyard. And I'm going to put some numbers in before I've been asked to talk about the suitability of the lands, the Prairie Valley lands. But I think it's important to understand where we came from, where we are today, and where we need to go, because it also follows along the lines of what you folks need to consider in terms of business and how people like ourselves coming into the community view business opportunities. Well, when we first got here, we bought this little winery, produced about 1,200 cases of wine a year, plus or minus 100. sat on about 4.5 acres of land, purchased a lot of its grapes from external growers, as well as developed 4.5 acres. Within 2007, our first full production year, we had about, I think it was just north of about 6,000 visitors, both local tourists, seasonal people who would come in to about a 4-month window when the winery was actually open. Last year's numbers, we crested 104,000 visitors, local, tourists, and others, that visited us all through the year, not just that 4-month window. With numbers like that, plus our production now at about 22,000 cases of wine, we're encouraged. We're excited about this opportunity to continue our growth within Summerland. We started to buy up a lot of the smaller little parcels of land, and one of the challenges we had was the balance of business, buying land, and making it efficient and sustainable in the long term. So we immediately started to think, well, how are we going to make this work and make it sustainable, not just for the next 5 years, but 10, 20, and beyond. So the most important thing to us is land. And where do we find land? Obviously, there's lots of land south of us and across into the Naramata Bench. But from a business perspective, an efficiency perspective, and where you can establish yourself and spend your money, we feel that it needs to be within Summerland. So about 2 years ago, I was introduced to a parcel of land, Prairie Valley lands, that were on, I think the Summerland Hills opportunity had just fallen apart at that time. But it's a piece of land that I've had the opportunity now to do a walkabout. That's all I've done on this land. But when you're looking at a vineyard land, this is about the best land that I've seen between the Osoyoos-US border and just north of the Kelowna area. There's 2 to 3 absolutely critical areas on that land that are very appealing from an interest point of view when you do a vineyard. One has a beautifully gently slope to it. There's not a lot of clearing or land development that we've had to done on other smaller parcels of land where you're totally recontouring the land. There's not a lot of superficial rocks that are in your way. And it's actually very sparse when it comes to the trees. And the trees that are there, actually I wouldn't have been carrying a lot of those downs because I use them as wind buffers to protect our vineyards. The most critical thing that we found in this valley when we're looking for land parcels is the frost pockets. Frost is the #1 deterrent to choosing a piece of land, even over the land quality itself. And I say that because the industry in the vineyards has come so long, even in the last 5 years, in terms of developing better breeds of crops, how we're going to actually make these vineyards grow, the water technology behind it. All of these things encourage us as winemakers to take it to the extreme. And there's lots of vineyards now that are pushing the envelope in elevation, sunlight, and exposure to wind. The Prairie Valley lands for us is very interesting because it has a number of key factors that are already there. Our vision as a business, we want to go to 40,000 cases within the next 5 years. We want to do it within Summerland. It's going to employ another 5 to 7 full-time people, plus the seasonal people that come in for 7 to 8 months of the year. We're looking to add another 18 to 20 people. Most of those people want to live here. They want to live close to where they work. So when you add up all these little matrices of how you want to establish a business, you couldn't ask for anything better. So the interest in the Summerland or Old Summerland Hills area is very key to us. It's a very viable piece of land. We want to do more investigation if it does come out to make it available to us as a business. But I think what I would like to stress to everybody in this room is the opportunity to grow a business is here, whether it's in agriculture or farming. Because those 102,000 tourists that come in every year, plus the local residents that really support us, continually bringing in more people, just encourages us to grow the business, to really make a showcase for the place within Summerland. And as you come around that corner, it's a beautiful sight when you see a vineyard in an agricultural land. I think it's just set and the sun beats on that for 12 hours a day. But people are encouraged that that's the right use of that piece of land. In terms of the overall suitability, there's nothing that I've seen that would deter me from taking that piece of land and actually converting it. Probably I'd be looking at 190 acres that might be available to us, anywhere in the neighborhood of 120 to 130 acres that actually has a vine growing out of it. So there's lots of pluses to that land. It's great to leave it in the agricultural land reserve. It's great for us as a business to say, wow, we've actually got something sustainable, it's efficient, It's long-term growth. So again, from an overall, I want to be here long-term as a business, as a young guy. This is where I would like to grow the business. So again, thank you for your time. Thank council for inviting me.
Thank you. One more presentation before our short break, and then the Q&A portion of this evening's program. And Mountain View Growers has a quick presentation for us.
Madam Mayor, members of council, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Peter Tulloch. I'm here on behalf of Mountain View Growers. Most of what we have to say tonight was said at the practice public hearing, and we're here tonight because our position hasn't changed since the practice public hearing. Mountain View Growers is a successor to an apple orchard established by Arnold Bourbon in Summerland in 1961 on land that is still part of their present location. In 1962, greenhouses were added to produce cucumbers, tomatoes, cut flowers, bedding, and tropical plants. In 1987, Mountain View Growers launched a tree seedling business, now its exclusive mainstay. On just under 30 acres of land owned by Mountain View Growers, together with 13 acres of land leased for storage, Mountain View Growers has been operating its tree seedling nursery at capacity for the past few years, producing up to 14.5 million seedlings annually. Production capacity is now maxed out, limited by the size of the site. There is no foreseeable prospect of acquiring any additional land adjoining the present location. A public road, Washington Avenue, and Aeneas Creek, each of which bisects the site, also impact the operational usage and efficiency. Furthermore, residential development adjoining the southern and eastern boundaries of its site and the resultant urban-rural interface conflicts are also problematic and have been the cause of many complaints over the years, prompting numerous visits from the district's bylaw enforcement officer, notwithstanding the right to farm legislation. To increase operational efficiencies at its present location, Mountain View Growers will need to make several structural upgrades, for example, a 5,000 square foot cooler. But there's understandably the reluctance to undertake any essential and costly improvements if relocation to a larger site is a realistic option. To ensure that any alternatives were reasonable, realistic, and suitable, Mountain View Growers prudently, and at its own expense, commissioned an independent third-party consultant, Conifer Consulting, to undertake an assessment of the lands owned and proposed for inclusion by the district. The consultant's report confirmed the suitability of the district's lands for a tree seedling nursery. A copy of that study is available to you at the Agricultural Land Commission. Accordingly, and for the record, Mountain View Growers confirms that in principle, it is supportive of the proposed urban growth plan. It will readily consider relocation and expansion of its nursery business to a more suitable and larger site. The lands owned by the district and proposed for ALR exclusion are suitable for its operations. Please note, however, that Mountain View Growers' interest in the district lands is contingent upon the availability of electricity and water, as well as particulars pertaining to land and servicing costs. Vital information required to corroborate financial feasibility. While there are a number of variables and uncertainties at this time, some preliminary number crunching suggests the relocation could be feasible. Thank you.
Thank you. So a short seventh inning stretch. Right now, according to that clock up there, it's 7:33, so if we could reconvene in 5 minutes or less, then we'll get on to your questions. Thank you. We have a small collection of questions tonight. So what I've done here, just so you know, my name is Eric Thompson, by the way. I'm the moderator. I am here as a volunteer to try and help the process. I don't know if that will help or not. I hope it will. We have a lot of voices here tonight. The idea is to ask as many questions as we can, which you've written out. Thank you very much for doing that. We will then pose those questions to mayor and council, and in some cases, we may have city staff try and answer those questions as well. So we'll try and get through as many as we can. I've gone through the first batch, the first quarter of questions, and I'm basically trying to stick to questions tonight as opposed to thoughts and books and that type of thing. So if you have your own opinions on things, that of course will come up April 22nd at the public hearing. But for now, we're just looking for some questions, so I'll do my best to get through those. Let's start off with this one. Why can't we wait until this November's election to get a real survey of what the people of Summerland want?
So I'll just say a couple of things. Certainly council can vote to bring this forward now as a question in a referendum, which would cost more than in November. I would personally vote against that, and I'll tell you why. We have done it before in the past where you put a question at the election and you get the for and you get the against. The problem is that when you sit at this council table, we deal with hundreds of issues over the course of the 3 years. And I hope no one is ever elected on one particular issue because they're going to get a real shock on day 2 when they actually have to deal with other things. The other part of that story too is that we did not have a referendum for the 1996 OCP or the 2008 OCP. We didn't have a referendum for the Wharton Street project, nor did we have it for the Summerland Hills Golf Resort. And let's face it, that was twice the size of this, 1,000 homes, 2 golf courses, an entire village. We didn't have it for that. This is the work of council, that's what they do, but I will encourage you that if you don't like the work of council, for goodness sakes, put your name forward and run in the election. I mean, that could change, right?
Question number 2. Why can't we ask questions at the microphone? In case we need to elaborate, we were told we could.
I think I'm going to let Tom answer that question. Tom Day is our city manager, our CAO.
Thank you. I don't think there ever was a statement that we'd answer at the microphone. I think when we looked at the expected number of questions we'd receive and prolonged debate or clarification, we just felt that this way would be the quickest and we'd get through most of them. I see tonight, Eric thinks he has 25%. He doesn't have anywhere near, and so hopefully we'll get through as many as we can. And I had a question just earlier in terms of what we would do if we didn't get through all of them tonight. And what we'll do over the next couple of days is we'll try and post the questions and post answers on our website, so we'll make sure we get everyone all the information they need.
All right, well, we asked you to fill out the forms. We said you didn't need to put your name, but Erin put her name on this one, and I think she's asking an important question here. She says, I haven't heard any new information tonight. Why are we here?
This was never intended to be new information. This is information that we all live with on a daily basis. And we felt, or certainly some of us at this table felt that maybe you didn't have all the information that we have. And I'm not certain that all of you knew how the taxes work. I'm not sure that all of you knew what our past infrastructure costs were or what they'll be in the future. So we gave that information alone. That at least was something for you to have. It was nothing more than an information session for you to have more knowledge. That's all. Nobody was trying to change your opinion.
All right, and I'm going to try.
Yes, this will be on the website. What you've heard tonight certainly on the slide presentations. And Marty wanted to.
Thank you, I appreciate the question. I think there is a lot of pertinent information that has come out tonight. Number 1 is the qualities of the land. There's been a lot of statements made, a lot of stuff on the internet, statements made at the APC meeting. 1, 2 lands versus 6 and 7 lands, I believe, were the statements. And that's not the facts. The facts are out tonight. They're from the Summerland Research Station. They're not our numbers. So I think this is some very pertinent information that has come forward. And thank you for the question.
So we can have both pieces of land for food. Why?
Okay. All right, here's another question. What is your view on the ALR? You have a lot of land outside the ALR. Just because it's rocky, why not use that land for infill instead?
So if I think I understand that right, in other words, keep the Summerland Hills, is that the idea, or build houses around? Remember that it costs $182,000 to build one road, 100 meters. We can't afford to develop that way. We can't do that. And so what's happened is exactly what's happened over the last 15 years. We have no growth at all. And we can't continue to go at this pace. It's not enough to continue to pay the bills. It's not enough to keep our schools open. It's not enough to keep our service clubs, our churches, our rec center going. We have to have more people in town. It's important. I'll tell you, if you just wanted a tax increase, Trout Creek is the place to build, right? That's where you get the highest revenue. But the fact is, it doesn't put people in the core of town. It doesn't put people where the shopping is, where the library is, where the rec center is, where the majority of the churches are. That's why you build in the core of town.
All right, thank you. And I just want to mention that the answers to these questions will be posted on the website within the next couple of days or whenever staff can get to them. And let's move on as quickly as we can here. How does the district sell land on MLS or to certain parties?
I think I'll refer that to Ian.
No, I'll take that. Basically, the district's required to make sale of land public notice in any regard, but the proposals that we're undertaking in terms of the disposal of agricultural land, there'll be an RFP, a request for proposal, advertised, and a formal system to weigh which is the best use of that land and generate the most revenue for the taxpayers of Summerland. So it will be through request for proposal.
All right, another question. How many lots that have been created already have not sold? Have any lots on the 17 lot subdivision sold on Grant Carlson?
I believe the Grant Carlson subdivision is not registered yet, so none of those lots can be sold until that is finally done. I can tell you that we did a search of the tax roll for how many pieces of land exist that have no record of improvements on them. And we did a count. There's 130 lots that are in all of Summerland at the moment that exist that have no house on them. And those we have located on our GIS system so we can see them. So it's 130.
Also want to mention there are some sheets here that have 3 or 4, or in some cases 5 or 6 questions. So what we'll do is try and get through at least a couple of your questions, and then we'll circulate them back through, and then either toward the end of the night we'll get to them again, or we will end up answering them on the website. We will not include me, I should say, city staff. I am a volunteer. What is the servicing cost for the 2 new business proposals that we heard earlier from Dirty Laundry and Mountain View Nursery in Prairie Valley lands to be established? What is the servicing cost for the 2 new business proposals?
Who'd like to take that, Ian or Tom?
We don't have servicing costs for those business proposals as of yet because we haven't investigated, we haven't done an RFP, we're not sure exactly who's interested, how much they might pay, and what the servicing costs are. If the district services them, obviously they will be more expensive to lease out. If the developer services them, obviously they will be cheaper. So in the end, it all kind of washes out.
All right, here's a simple question. What is Plan B if the ALR turns us, or the ALC turns us down? What is Plan B?
I'm going to let Councillor Van Alphen.
Thank you for the question. I never went into this looking for a plan B. It'll be interesting to see if this passes at the council table, what the ALC will say. They may be the ones that are going to show us a plan B. It might be a phased approach. We don't know that yet. It could be, the Quinn Pool to Eneas Creek might be the first phase. Who knows? Go ahead. Then also it might be an approach where if X amount of lands do come out of the Prairie Valley or start to get developed into agriculture in the Prairie Valley, the ALC may say then they'll allow X amount of land out. So I think they're going to want to see development in the new lands prior to releasing other lands, and same over the Barkwell Cook area. Thank you.
If infill could provide 295 possible homes, even 150 as you stated, why are you proposing to take land out of the ALR?
Ian, I think you're probably the best one to answer this, but I think that the biggest question is none of those homes are actually in preparation to be subdivided at this time. None of those people. I mean, Jim Hunt owns some land. I saw him in here. You know, whether or not they even want to subdivide it, probably not. Probably not. You know, for a number of years. So we don't expect that. But Ian, you go ahead and answer that question.
Yeah, if we take the 150 number, which we think from a staff perspective is reasonable, at 32 permits a year, which is what we are issuing over the last 10, that's less than 5 years. And again, as the mayor stated, none of those are under application, none of those exist today. So it's just simply trying to provide a plan that will take us into the future.
How many do we do per year, Ian?
32 building permits for new single-family homes is what we've been doing for about the last 10 years.
All right. I believe we touched on this earlier, but why is this issue not being put on the fall election as the scope is too serious to be decided by council?
I think we answered
Answer that one. All right. It seems the public response is based on only 153 surveys which were received. Given the public outcry against the plan, why do you continue to say that this is what the general public wants?
Well, I know this is huge for all of you, and for many of you, you're deeply against it, and we get that message. But the difference between the process that we went through this time was everybody was allowed to take a stand and make their vote known. Everyone in town. That was a first. That did not happen in 2008. It did not happen in 1996. So those who chose to take the time to fill out the surveys wanted to and did, and that was up to them. And I'll tell you, I was there in 2008, and it was a small room of people who made the decision, and in 1996, we know the symptoms. So, you know, whether or not people decide to do it, it's up to them. And a lot of people, I mean, I've talked to a lot of people that do not feel the way you do, so you have to respect, we all have difference of opinion.
All right, here's another question from the audience. What did anything Ms. Perino say have to do with taking land out of the ALR? Is there a requirement that land classified as agriculture be in or added to the ALR?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Is there a requirement that land classified as agriculture be in or added to the ALR?
Be in or added. Whether you're in the ALR or not in the ALR, as long as you are farming over your capacity, you can apply to be a Class 9 status, and so you're given the lower tax base. So whether you are farming in an ALR or not in an ALR, doesn't matter. It's the same tax.
This is kind of a long one, but I have to read the first part for it to make sense. This is directed at the mayor. According to School District 67's long-range facility plan on their website, Giants Head and Trout Creek Elementary Schools are going to remain at or above enrollment capacity for the next 15 years at least, better than Penticton. Why do you state the opposite?
Well, you only have to look at the numbers to realize that we were down 32%. And I have to tell you that Trout Creek has now got the French program. I think that was a big move forward. And Giants Head, of course, is very busy. I have no problems with that. For me, it was the high school that I found so alarming when the principal said, "This is where it's at." That was what he said. You know, they're gonna talk closure when they're at 200 students. You saw the numbers. We can show them to you. You know, if that's the way it goes, it goes.
All right, and I'd like to remind you, if you'd like to share your thoughts on the meeting on April 22nd, you'll have an opportunity to do so then. Are you aware, Mr. McIntosh, that sampling must be random in order to be used as a survey for making conclusions on the desires of an entire population?
Yes, I am aware if you're doing a scientific survey that it has to be a random sampling, and we've done that with our citizen surveys before. This is a public opinion survey, which is a different tool, and it was the one we had available to us.
And this is a similar question. Who on staff is qualified to determine that this was a statistically valid survey that could be used to reflect the wishes of the community?
No one that I'm aware of.
Why did the council not ask in the survey, were you in favor of removing lands from the ALR for residential housing units?
When we came up with the different areas, there was 13 of them that were considered, 5 of them were in the ALR. We fully expected, and all of those areas had been considered for development before. And we realistically expected that people would, through their choices in where to develop, would tell us that. And to be quite honest, I was a bit surprised when that wasn't the case. But we thought we'd let the electorate choose where they should go, and we wouldn't presuppose which ones went on the list and which ones didn't. We put them all on there, and then you folks chose.
All right, and this person, Mayor Perino, has said that you've made it clear in your media interviews that you're in favor of the proposal, and their question is there any point in having a public hearing, or is this just a matter of course?
I think everybody at this council table has changed their mind on decisions through public hearing. And you need to know very clearly that we have to, just to get to that stage in December, we had to decide whether or not we were in favor of going forward at that point. And that's where we were at. And definitely, if people bring up some reasons why that makes sense to all of council, it may very well fail. So, I don't want to discourage you. That's the way it works. We've all changed our minds in public hearings before.
Who at the Agricultural Land Commission will be making a decision about the removal of the ALR land?
There are a number of commissioners, I don't know all their names, who make decisions based on all the ALC applications. So the commission themselves, which are appointed members to that commission, will make that decision.
All right, challenging to read some of this writing, but I'll do my best. How are Summerland taxpayers going to be compensated for the loss in value of taxpayer land that council is, in essence, handing over to the owners of land coming out of the ALR?
Actually, that's a really good question, because that discussion has come up through different avenues, and there are all sorts of possibilities on how to handle it. And because we're just nowhere near there to even discuss it. But there are places around the province where they have made concessions for when a homeowner has land that's being removed, if it goes up in value, and for them to change it over to development, whatever that development is, whether it's business or homes or whatever, there can be some compensation paid to the community for the future of either rec centers or community gardens or something along that line. So that discussion actually has been said, and we're just nowhere near there. We're just trying to get through the public hearing and the vote at the end, and then we'll see where it goes. But there certainly are discussions that way. It's a good question.
Another question, have you got a report or professional opinion from an independent planner, community growth consultant, or realty professional regarding the demand for homes in your proposed area and other areas as alternatives?
Ian, can you answer that?
Well, the short answer is no. What we're doing is looking, we know the infill numbers, we know the number of permits that we issue per year. So the idea here is to suggest a future direction for Summerland. The current one is to go out into Prairie Valley West. I think certainly staff suggested that's not affordable or sustainable, so we need a new plan. And this whole exercise was undertaken by some very competent professionals who do this for a living, who gave us this final report, and the results of that are why we're here.
And certainly, this is not a development, this is a plan. This is a plan just like in 2008, the plan was to go to the Summerland Hills Golf Resort. This is no different, it's just a plan of where the future will go. We won't see that, just like the Bentley Road, it will take time. And that's all that you're hearing.
Here's a question for the mayor. Since Mayor Perino states that we are looking at school closures, loss of business and service clubs, why are we looking to supply more housing when there doesn't seem to be a demand?
That's a good question. The truth is, for those of us who lived in the uptown area, we know you walk around, you tend to shop more, you do more window shopping, you come back, it's easy to shop downtown. We know that businesses tend to buy in their own areas. The fact is that we have had a real decrease of people in the downtown core, and it's partially because of our aging population, it's partially because we're having stores lost. I don't know what tourists think, but I can't think that it's a positive to see so many stores for rent and so many for lease. It's not a good sign, and we've all recognized that. But when you live down there, when you work down there, you tend to shop down there, and we know that for a fact. And if we can provide more affordable homes, particularly for the families that will be coming for work in the Bentley Road area, we know that they'll be doing more commuting, more walking, more using of the area. So it's worked everywhere else.
Thank you, Worship. Just a quick statement or quick on that question. My wife and I moved to Summerland in 1988 with our 3 children. We were living in Penticton, we researched Naramata, we researched Culloden, both beautiful communities. We came to Summerland because it had a full-fledged hospital. Not that my kids were accident prone, but and also it had kindergarten to grade 12. It had some of the most beautiful rec facilities, and we've made Summerland our home since 1988. And when we moved here, I commuted back and forth to Penticton for my work. I think there's a lot of people like that, and there's a lot of people like Summerland. You know, once upon a time I envisioned Summerland, and please don't crucify me, as the industrial capital of South Okanagan, but I guess that hasn't come true. But I definitely think we can be the best bedroom community in the Okanagan Valley. Thank you.
All right, this one here says, you say anyone can continue to farm as long as they want to. What measures will council be implementing to ensure this, and that new residential areas don't end up driving out farming through complaints in nuisance for farm noise, odor, dust to the Farm Industry Review Board?
That's a good question. The Farm Legislation Act is very strong, and we support that 100%. And I have to tell you quite honestly that there is a full active farm right beside the La Vista complex, which is 58 homes that are, you know, right there, right beside that farm. And I don't get complaints from them. There is a good buffer, and wherever there is, you know, we're talking years from now, right? Years. Whenever there is a development, if this should go forward, then there'd be a buffer, and the farmer would be protected. That is for sure. Because people who move in there would realize very clearly the farm was there first, they can farm for centuries.
Sorry, Your Worship, I just can't help myself. At the past 2 UBCMs, I go down a day early and I attend the agricultural tour. Last one was the first one was in Victoria, the last one I went to was in Vancouver, and there's been a lot of interesting discussions on buffer zones. You know, what we've been used to in the past is planting cedar trees and poplar trees, watering them, and people are starting to look at that as an absolute waste of land. And there's been a lot of new ideas around buffer zones, such as community gardens, church groups farming that piece of land, or the farmer farming that piece of land in maybe a different crop type setting than tree fruits. But there is some exciting new things coming down the pipe in that area, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that might be able to work in this community. Thank you.
All right, considering climate change, population growth, and increased per capita land demand due to changing diets, what is council's view on how Summerland could profit from this situation? Wouldn't it, from a business point of view, be smart to invest in agriculture and save land for the future?
You know, one of the things that we checked very clearly was how much agriculture is in BC, and obviously it's very strong. What, 700,000, Ian, am I correct? 700,000? I mean, agriculture in this province is very strong, and farming, I mean, anybody who has a residential, if you've ever grown tomatoes in your backyard, you know today you can grow a lot more than you could 20, 30 years ago. The whole farming practices have changed, but we wanted to make sure that we maintain the same amount of land by putting land back in. And this province is agriculturally strong, this area is still agriculturally strong. I think we have 0.2% of all the agricultural land in the Nicola Thompson area, and I mean, we've remained that way for a long time, and we're doing fine. I'm not worried about food production, if that was what the question was.
All right. This question, it says here, I attended one of the workshops in the arena, approximately 7 tables of 5 to 6 people. At every table, the number one issue was to keep the ALR intact. Were these persons not included in your survey?
Ian, do you want to take that?
Yes, I was at that function as well, and there was at least 2 tables I recall that wasn't their first primary position, and they certainly were included in the survey if they filled it out. All the surveys that were filled out were compiled by our consultants, and that information made its way into the final report.
All right, regarding students, isn't it true that student population throughout BC is down? We've touched on that.
Yeah, yes, and yes, I'm certain it is. I don't mind that it's down. We've all known that. We're an aging population, and I think you're going to see a lot of Zoomers over the next 15 years come here, which is, I mean, that was one of the main reasons why we wanted to see Wharton Street maintained, because we think that particularly Zoomers will want that, but we need to offer a variety of homes. But I still think we need to encourage as many young families to come here as possible. What I don't want to ever have happen is to have the school closed. That's primary.
This question either to council or staff, I'm not sure who would like to answer it. What methods are you using to measure the efforts you have made so far to increase business and demand for Summerland homes?
Go ahead, Ian. Go ahead, because you had that slide.
Well, I guess the question is, what efforts are we using to measure? And I know other than building permits that we issue for new homes, the transfer of homes between people isn't a function of growth, so that's all we're tracking is the number of permits for new homes and the numbers of new businesses that we're issuing licenses for.
I mean, and I don't know if any other councillors want to answer this, the one thing that I hear all the time, I mean, we have one of our councillors who has a business right on Main Street, so he may wish to comment, but the one call that I get a lot is, you know, we can't keep our business going and you're not doing enough to help this community to grow, to make my business stay healthy. So that's a complaint I get quite regularly. And as the mayor, you're often talking to businesses, trying to get them to come to town and see the excitement and how beautiful it is here. And I get it over and over again. There's not enough of a population base to support a business. I don't know, Robert, did you want to answer that question?
Can you repeat the question?
About business? Yeah, it's about business.
The question again, what methods are you using to measure the efforts you have made so far to increase business and demand for Summerland homes?
So at the end of the day, the district has lots of metrics it can use to track, and so does the chamber, such as business licenses to come to town, business development permits. The main one, though, is the business licenses, and as business licenses improve, we see improvement in business. So if there's going to be an effect either way from these results, there will be significant data to validate whether those results improved or decreased somewhat.
Can you talk about what you see now?
Well, the main thing as a business owner in downtown is the customer base. We compete with Penticton, and that's no surprise. It's just the reality of the situation. Every business in downtown competes for customers. And successful businesses have a good game plan, but at the end of the day, you need a base of customers in downtown to supply the winter months, to give you success in the summer. And I ran our growth platform, and I'd like to see more investment in Summerland and more customers in Summerland. And my hope is that whatever OCP we end up going with, it accomplishes that goal.
A literary question. There have been a couple of people who've asked this question, so I'll ask it to council and staff. Have any council or staff read the book Smaller is Better? It's by Dr. I believe it's Dr. Fidor. Smaller is Better. Anybody read the book?
I can't say that I'm familiar with it. What we do end up reading are all the, you know, there's a lot of papers, a lot of talk about, you know, how communities grow and what works best and what larger communities have found. And, you know, there's no doubt that it's very clear that the vision of building from the core is the smart growth, it's the climate action. I mean, there's no doubt about it. It's just that when you have a situation like ours, that's when it gets unpopular. There's no doubt about it.
Actually, I have not read the book. It's been referred to me. I haven't had a chance to read it as it's been referred in the last little while. But I certainly believe that smaller is better. People shouldn't handle a line like that. I just can't resist it. But no, it does fall in line, as the mayor said, with densification and intensification, and we need to improve our town core. We certainly, when we look at the core itself, one reason why we looked at Wharton Street, and hopefully it will happen down the road, is that you get a mix of business and commercial as well as residential. And so the one block, 4 acres there in the Wharton Street area, you're looking at the potential there for property tax at 2.7 times the rate of residential for the commercial business section of it. So the bang for the buck is there as well. When you're looking at intensification in the core, your infrastructure is already there. Given Wharton Street did need some improvements in infrastructure, and that was part of the deal we had with the last developer. But there's certainly bonuses to developing within the area that you already have infrastructure. All right?
Okay, another question. If you take 200 acres of land out of the ALR for residential development, where do you expect all these new residents to find work?
Good question. One of the things that we really want to say is that when you're looking at the 200 acres, I mean, I know that's going to be phased in over the 30 to 50 years. So it's going to be a lot of different things should it ever go forward. And we're talking about residential homes, maybe strata homes. I think it's, someone said to me, oh, the value of my home in the area is going to drop down. That is not the case. It has never been proven to be the case. It definitely would be things like recreation as well as pathways, community gardens. There can be, even some large recreational areas. So there's all sorts of possibilities for what could be, except definitely more affordable. The idea of having the Bentley Road, we know will open up, and we know will open up jobs. Whether you think so or not, it's going to happen. The land is there, it's ready to go, and it will bring in jobs. But we also know that as Penticton grows and as West Kelowna and Kelowna grows, they also are bringing in more people. And, I lived in Summerland, worked in Kelowna for 8 years without any trouble. Many people live here, work in Penticton. So there's a lot of people. I mean, we know a lot of people who work in Summerland at the municipal, for the municipality and live in Penticton. So, it can work the other way. It's not such a bad thing.
I'd like to just add to that, Your Worship. One of my meeting places is the local rec center, as many of you know, and my wife kind of wonders why I take so long down here. It's because I end up talking to people, visiting, But in the last few weeks, I've encountered a number of people that have moved here. One was a young man and his family. He works north of Prince George as a carpenter. He wanted a better climate. He wanted a better school for his kids, so he moved down here. He will commute. Another individual, same sort of age brackets, working in Fort Mac, did the same thing. Another woman moved from Winnipeg in September. I need one of the crystal balls that she's using because they've had the worst winter in 75 years. So, we've had a number of people, I think in total over the last 2 weeks I've encountered about 6 individuals who have moved here. It's difficult to do a count on the demographics when you also have a heavy seniors population. Some of our seniors are moving to other communities where they've got younger members to take care of them. They also move from an individual single-family residential to some sort of other facility. So, there's a movement in the community, and it's very difficult to track these things, and we talk about increases or decreases, and it's a hard thing to get a handle on when you've got these changes taking place. But I know I was informed by one of our school district trustees that yes, our elementary schools are bulging, but our high school is at a low point right now. The elementary schools will have to put those kids further up. They can't stay in elementary school. I think they should. At any rate, we are going to get the bulge back for a period of years as those children go through the system. So I'm not in any fear of losing our high school in the near future, and I think we need a new conversation to see that that doesn't happen.
We have a few questions left. I've just been reading through, and I'd like to bring this one up because I think it's important that we talk about the issue of time. that we probably wouldn't have the time to have everybody in town speak their mind realistically. But I know that if people do have questions, they can always contact council or talk to them at the store, send them an email. But it says here, this question is, why are you afraid to let people who you represent speak to you and ask the hard questions in the way they want, rather than hiding behind or using tiny pieces of paper?
Okay. The reason we talked about this at length, and the suggestion was brought up, and there are people who want to ask different questions, and we wanted to give everybody the opportunity. And we know darn well that often people will put their feelings behind the question rather than just asking the question. And so that's what takes time. And we knew we wouldn't have it tonight. Feel free to send us an email. You're certainly welcome. Lots of people send us emails. They get passed around to council and we do answer them. So feel free if you want to express your views. And we want you to save your opinions for the 20 seconds. So, you know, that the goal tonight was to answer as many questions as possible.
Why do Mayor and Council think that residential real estate development will lead to growth of the population, school attendance, and economic development when all the evidence shows that it has not done so at any time since 1998?
Well, Deer Ridge is a perfect example. In the last 20 years, we've only seen 7 lots develop into new homes. It's because it's too expensive to develop out there, and just to get the sewer out to Deer Ridge is $2.5 million. If we can develop closer to the core, we're absolutely certain that definitely more people will move here. There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. And it doesn't mean that if you live in that area that it's going to lower the price of your home. When there's more marketable housing available, it's always a good thing. It's you know, part of me wants to say too that if we always do what we've been doing, if we always do what we've always done, we're going to continue to have what we've had. And if this works for you, that's fine. My concern is obviously not only the population, but the cost that it takes to run this town. And we can't go backwards. We're not the community we were 20, 30 years ago.
All right. Brady Strachan from CBC. You can hear more tomorrow on CBC. Thanks for coming. All right, here's a tough one. Well, maybe it's easy, I don't know. Did you pay any attention to your planning advisory committee? They voted unanimously against any ALR exclusion.
They are a committee that makes recommendations. It didn't surprise me at all that that was the case. I know that there were some feelings that were different at the table, and there was definitely some strong points of view that were presented, and that's fine. But they're not elected officials, so you know it's your elected officials who make the decision. And guess what? You could put your name forward in November. We did listen. You know, I personally did not agree. You know, that's why I voted for it in December, and we'll see where the decision goes at the end of the month.
You say proper legislative procedures will be followed. What assurance do the residents of Summerland have that this procedure will be followed to the benefit of the town rather than any agenda of council?
I don't think there's any agenda of council, but maybe Tom, can you just talk about the process? Is that possible for you?
Yes, the process for community plan approvals is laid out in the Local Government Act and the applicable legislation, and we strive to follow that. And part of that is to have a public hearing where council listens to the concerns of the public. And again, just to reiterate that this is outside of that formal approval process. There was an opportunity for people to submit questions and have council answer them. And so council's elected to make the decision. The provincial statutes empower them to do that, and that's what will occur with this document.
All right. If new soccer and baseball fields, RCMP building, water treatment plant has not attracted more residents and growth, what about the removal of ALR land to convert it to housing points to these homes being purchased?
I'm not exactly sure what that means, but I think what they're asking is what gives you the feeling that these homes in this area would be. Remember that this is a plan. This is not a development. We're talking where future growth can go. We currently have all of our future growth in the Summerland Hills Golf Resort area. That project is dead. We have to figure out where the future growth will go. Who knows what the future necessarily will bring where people want to live, but we know we need to provide different types types of housing. We need to provide condos. We need to provide strata housing like La Vista. We need to provide townhouses, and we need to provide single-family homes. We know we need to do that. We know we have very few available. We know by the amount of potential lots that we have very little available. That's what we're trying to do, is provide more lots so that people will have more opportunities to live here. It's as simple as that. It's a plan for the future. If you want to keep the Summerland Hills where it is right now, it's sprawl. It's absolute sprawl. So we're trying to pick another area where we can have future growth long after we are gone. That's what we're talking about, 30 to 50 years, where the future can be. Remember, not a single farm needs to sell, not a single farm needs to stop farming.
So if we don't go ahead with this plan, which some call a land swap, what happens then economically?
I'm sorry?
If we don't go along with this plan, which they call here a land swap, and I know that you've said that it's not official, you don't call it a land swap.
We never called it a land swap. We wanted to make sure that agriculture stayed strong by putting the exact amount, if not more, back in to make sure that we kept our agriculture strong. Just because it's on the outside, as you can see by what he has shown you, the land is very good, and there is people who want that, and I think there'll be more people who want it. It's never been about a swap. That was never our word. We want to make sure that we keep the same amount of agricultural land that we've always had, and that's what this council brought forward.
So the question is, if you don't go with that plan, what happens then economically?
Well, then we have to review and start again, and it was a darn expensive process to go through that we all agreed to at the table. So that's the problem. I don't know. We can't, if we put growth further out to the far end of the south, it's never going to happen. If you put it to the far north, it's not going to happen. That's the problem. What you're looking at, if we don't go forward with this, is you're looking at basically a no growth. Now, many of you don't want growth. We completely get that. One lady said to me, I don't want to look at a house. Okay, I get it. If you don't want growth, nothing is going to make you happy. But the fact is, really, vibrant communities do have some growth. It's quite normal. It's quite effective.
Another question, when you did modeling analysis, why did you include lands that were contrary to the desires of those who participated in your citizen inclusion process, i.e. ALR lands?
It doesn't matter what lands you put in, it's always controversial. It doesn't matter what it is, but Ian, maybe you can answer the question.
I can speak to that one. And again, what we did was we included all the land that is able to be developed and only the ALR land that had previously been considered in the past. And that was all put in there so that the survey respondents and the community could pick from the full grocery list of possibilities and tell us what they thought. That is why they were all in there.
All right. Has any other change to development rules been disclosed for zoning non-ALR land development to densify growth on non-ALR lands within the city or downtown core?
Yes, I can answer that one. And the answer is yes, there's been a lot of regulatory changes to allow greater density and more business opportunities in the downtown core. And the most notable of that is the smaller lot sizes that we brought forward with our new zoning bylaw. The largest, or the smallest lot size that used to be allowed was 650 square meters. And that was reduced to 460, which is what allowed all those infill opportunities that we showed on the map before to occur. Although I think we've only had one subdivision I can think of in the 3 years since that new regulation's been put in place. And we also allowed for sharing of parking in the downtown area so that when people redevelop or add to their businesses, they aren't hampered by having to provide extra parking, and there's no opportunity on most of those lots to do that. We allowed more height in the downtown core so people can develop and put residential above if they wish to. We allowed residential on the ground floor in our downtown core on some streets, which has never been permitted before. So there is, and we allowed carriage houses on every seaward lot in Summerland, which is also a new regulation. So there's been, in our view, quite a lot of significant regulatory changes that would allow great densification in our town core.
How will Summerland handle the extra traffic that will come with all this urban development, particularly the highway intersections?
Okay, actually, one of the things that I liked about when this final analysis came out, particularly for the Quinpool North area, is that Victoria Road is the main route out of town, which I think, people would use if they were working into the north, and even easier access to the south. So it certainly helps to move a lot of that traffic to that end. So it definitely, that was one of my thoughts. I don't know if any other councillor has any other comment on that? No? Okay. Yeah, but you're not talking thousands. The Summerland Hills Golf Resort, which was approved back in 2008, was for 1,000 homes. 1,000 homes plus 2 golf courses, an entire village. I mean, just think about how many people that would have been moving right from that far west edge all the way through town. Now, let's face it, maybe some of the businesses would love that. There's no doubt we can handle that kind of thing. We can handle it. It's not that bad. I know it sounds huge. It's not. It's not. This area that is being proposed is half the size of the Summerland Hills. We're talking half the size. So half the number of homes, and certainly no golf courses or anything of that type. I mean, communities are used to this. This would not be a major burden.
How many homes would you say roughly,
Ian, what do we think? Because it's estimates.
I don't have those numbers. They're in the slideshow here. I'd have to add them up. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I think they were, if I recall correctly, at 5 units per acre, we're looking at about 850 maximum.
Maximum. Over 30 to 50 years. 850 maximum. Summerland Hills was 1,000. 1,000 plus 2 golf courses. Do you know that the average golf course has 45,000 tee times per year? That's 45,000 tee times. That's 4 people that have to travel there and back. We won't have that.
Does this ALR removal still have to get through the BC Commission, and what are the prospects?
Ian?
Yes, if this bylaw amendment makes it through the public hearing into second, third reading, the applications will then be sent off to the Land Commission, and the Land Commission will rule on those applications. We did converse with the Land Commission extensively before we started down this road, because we did not want to get into a situation where we have all this controversy and the Land Commission says no. So we went and we spoke with them, we asked them what their concerns were, we presented some options that we thought might occur, and before the final open house in October, I believe, we actually went down to the Land Commission and we spoke to the commissioners themselves and said, we have an open house coming up in October, and if this is a non-starter, we're not going to suggest it, because we don't want to go through this whole process and be told no. And they listened to us, they looked at the proposal, they had some concerns, but they said it's unlikely that the answer will be no. There may be conditions, there may be partial things, there may be all kinds of stuff, and don't take this as an absolute agreement, because it isn't, but that was the impression that we got. So we're anticipating that they will give it due consideration, and we'll see what they say.
And I just want to relay that about 25, 30 years ago, when the last removal was done, that's the, like I said, La Vista area. Ian, you might know some more. And they asked, the council of the day asked for quite a large portion and only got that section. So gives you an idea about what sometimes is said.
All right. Does council have any side-by-side numbers that show the cost to Summerland of the proposed swap, the expected tax revenues, and the other alternatives such as Deer Ridge or no growth plan?
I'm not sure Ian, do you want to try that?
The short answer is no, we don't. We haven't gone through that level of, that's a tremendous amount of work and effort to go through that with a ton of assumptions that we probably couldn't justify.
All right, according to this question, this person, every community in the Okanagan and Fraser Valley would find it cheaper to develop ALR land. Why should Summerland be different when the community obviously wants to preserve ALR?
Sorry, why
Why should Summerland be different when the community obviously wants to preserve ALR? The question was every community every community in the Okanagan and Fraser Valley would find it cheaper to develop ALR land.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure how developing ALR land helps to bring in a higher tax base or helps to bring in a stronger population base of what we're trying to do to get people into the core of town. Certainly it's less expensive, but that's up to the individual farmer, right? That's up to them to buy the land or lease the land, whatever they're doing. That's up to them. So, you know, that's a cost that they bear to produce their business. I mean, yeah, that's expected. I mean, it doesn't. The whole idea of this is a plan for future growth. The whole idea of this is to get people in the core of town in the future. When those people want to stop farming, it's for them to decide whether or not they want to stop farming, for them to decide whether or not they want to sell their land or subdivide it themselves. That's up to them.
Okay, the quick point of clarification. The purpose of this meeting tonight is...
That was my question, and the point was missed entirely. The question was, why should Summerland be able to develop land for housing when every other community in the Okanagan and Fraser Valley would also like to be able to develop
I can answer that one.
land for their housing?
Okay.
The question is for housing, not as farming.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got the question there, and the short answer is yes, every community in the Okanagan does want to develop on farmland because it is flat, it is close to the core in many instances, and it is already serviced, which is obvious. What makes our community slightly different is that we have some municipally owned land that many other communities do not have, that have farmers expressing interest in wanting to acquire it. So there is an opportunity, a very unique opportunity, for us to suggest allowing some land to go into the ALR that bona fide farmers want to farm, and allowing some land close to the core that's serviced to come out as an exchange or a redrawing of the boundary. If that opportunity wasn't here, the answer for sure would be no.
Okay, maybe this is something I just wanted to clarify. So the purpose of tonight is for people to ask questions and get as much information as possible. The questions are asking, where does that information go once, because I've got a letter here basically, I'm going to ask the one question that I see, but where does this information, does this get reviewed by staff and by council?
Yes, all the questions and information in that case, I think it's a multi-page letter, will form part of the official record, and will be something that council will consider as part of their deliberations following the public hearing.
And then that's on April 22nd, and that's where people are able to provide their thoughts again with 5-minute questions on the microphone.
Exactly.
Okay.
With all of the data from the last public hearing going forward as well.
Okay, just wanted to clarify. Here is the question. Why does Summerland need to reconsider its future growth area at this time? Why did Mayor and Council not publicize to residents of Summerland of their intentions until recently?
Oh, Ian, how many times did we let the public know? I mean, it was just endless.
Well, I guess to answer the question first, the first time I believe this idea of reviewing the urban growth strategy, because the Summerland feels the current growth strategy does not appear to be relevant, was probably in 2012 with the goals and objectives sessions of council, and that was on the list. And because of other workloads and other things we were doing, we didn't get to it. And then it was raised to the very top of the list in 2013, and again that document was part of the agenda on numerous council meetings. And then when we hired the consultants and we went through that whole process, there was quite a bit, at least in our view, as much public interaction as we could possibly manage over the last 15, 16 months. So it's been out there as much as we could possibly manage.
And as I said before, the Summerland Hills area for our future growth was crazy, and we all knew that. It was great as a plan with what it was, but those days are gone, and the project is dead. So that's why all of our future growth is destined for that area, and that's why we all agreed that had to change.
Question for the mayor. Why does Mayor Perino make it seem that the only choice is between taking land out of the ALR or having sprawl out at Deer Ridge? Why does Mayor Perino make it seem that the only choice is between taking land out of the ALR or having sprawl out at Deer Ridge?
Well, that's one of the reasons why in my presentation I wanted you to see what the infill was available and what we know is available now. I wanted you to know that it's more than just Wharton Street is there, and I mentioned that. I mentioned the infill. These are all the things that we're dealing with. It's just that we've had very little growth. And I know that if we continue down this road, it's a completely unhealthy pattern, and that's why we're trying to say, listen, it's not up to us, but the future really needs to have consideration and change, and that's why I think the plan needs to change about where we grow. That doesn't mean it will happen in the short term. That means it's the long-term goal. Long-term plan.
If Summerland continued at its current growth rate in 5 years, what impact will that have on residential tax rates in 5 years?
Well, I don't think we can answer that question, and it's always up to the mayor and council of the day. You know, some councils like to put in higher taxes. You know, that's up to their discretion. It's however they do it. We've tried to keep it at the 1%, 2%, 3% maximum per year, just so we can keep, you know, on top of it. I've been on councils where we went as high as 5%. So it just depends, the council of the day. Who knows what it will be in 5, 10, 15 years time. You can't label that. But we do know that we have costs of about $50 million to face, because we know we've got to do Garnet Valley Road, which is a $4.5 million. We know we've got to do Giants Head. We know we've got to do, you know, Hesper and Canyon View, and we've got to expand the sidewalks. We've got to do water separation. It's just that the list is endless. So we know we have to face that. So we're trying to find ways to do that.
All right. Now again, you didn't have to put your name down, but if you did, I might read it, just so people have reference. Keith Carlson has a question. The mayor stated that Osoyoos, Oliver, Beachland, and Lake Country all had significant population growth. They did this without removing land from the ALR. Why does this council expect removing ALR land will increase population when other communities did not have to?
That's a good question. I don't have a problem answering that one. I don't know for sure about the other communities. They may have removed land. I did not ask that question. But the difference with ours is that we happen to have ALR right in the core of our community, and that's why. And because the process lended itself to go in that direction. So we said, okay, if that's what the community wants, then we certainly will move it forward to the next stage. I'm not certain that the other communities didn't take land out. I don't know the answer to that. One thing that I want to be really upfront about is Penticton's growth rate has been very low, and I did a lot of research on, you know, why that's happened. And one person told me there's been so much growth in the commercial area. If you look at that Skull Hall Lake, where, you know, so many of those stores and plazas are new and the businesses are new, and remember they're paying $3, almost $3 for every $1 that we pay for residential. So they've had a tremendous increase in their business sector. And, you know, one former councillor was on years ago, said there's the population in Penticton has lost a lot of citizens just due to aging. So, you know, losing them, in other words, they're passing on. So I wasn't fully determined as to, you know, what that was, but the other communities are growing.
Here's a question for the mayor. This town hall is not legal. As you stated after the public hearing, the mayor and councillors cannot receive or give additional information prior to second or third reading. Will you stop this meeting now, or will you be found in violation of required process again?
I'm going to pass this right over to Tom Day to answer, who is our CA.
I can answer that. The mayor and council cannot receive information after third reading. Before, the whole intention is to accept as much public input as possible to try and understand the community's wishes.
Thank you. How does this bylaw stop urban sprawl when there are developers who will continue to be allowed to develop in the hills if they have already received approval to proceed?
Well, I wouldn't call 7 homes in 20 years allowing developers to do a lot. I mean, that's not what you call. I mean, that's very, very minimal. 7 homes in 20 years. So, you know, the sprawl thing is when you have a pocket of land where that's where your potential for growth is supposed to be. Whether or not it gets done, it's obviously not getting done. Obviously, it's smarter to build from the core. It's just that our core happens to be different, and that's what makes it difficult. But sprawl is not effective. It's not economical. It's not future thinking. It's certainly not climate action thinking. And we had. You know, talking to water specialists, I mean, they all agree, build from the core up. It's of course the way to go. It's just that our case is different. That's all. It's what makes it difficult.
We touched on this, but I'll ask this question because I think it's important. Are comments, letters from the March 3rd meeting part of the record, and do people need to speak again on the 22nd if they've already spoken?
They can speak again if they want to, or just keep what was said that night. That will all go forward. Absolutely. We just want to make sure that no one is turned away. And And so the doors will be kept open for people to come in and out. And as you can see, this actually holds 980, so we think we'll be okay. So that if you have spoken before and you can't come that night, please don't feel you need to. We've got your report, and that's okay.
Question, I believe, for staff. When is a referendum legally required?
Funny, when you're borrowing more than $1 million.
Yeah, there's very few actual requirements for a referendum. It's if you incur borrowing over a 5-year period, or in some other form of liability over a 5-year period, and you aren't successful in what's called an alternate approval process, is the only time there's an actual requirement for a referendum.
This question is a bit of a statement, but I'll ask it anyway. Mary, you might want to jump in on this. How many acres did Oliver Osoyoos Lake Country take out of the ALR to have such great growth?
You know, I got those numbers off of Canada Census, so you can prove them anytime you want. I don't know the answer to that question. I'm not even sure how I could find out. I could try and do some research on that. I can't tell you, but I got those numbers from Canada Census, so it's really easy to find out. And their growth has been better. And remember, just like us, they went through the economic boom, so, you know, I can't tell you why, but I know when you know, with the 1996 OCP, it definitely changed almost overnight. The growth pattern changed almost overnight, which was quite alarming. Changed almost overnight, which was quite alarming.
Another question. Please explain how flooding an already saturated residential lot market with even more lots will contribute to the economic growth of Summerland.
I don't know if
I
you want to.
can answer that one. I'm continually being told to get these subdivision applications through a whole lot faster, and I don't believe it's remotely true that the market on single-family vacant lots is flooded by any means. I believe that there's lots of demand for single-family lots in Summerland.
Thank you, Ian. Could the two agribusinesses, the ones who presented earlier, not operate on the Prairie Valley Road land even if it is not in the ALR? Or could that land be added to the ALR without having to make the swap?
Go ahead, Ian.
Yes, the answer to that is yes, they could. The difficulty we've got is that land under our current official community plan is earmarked for residential growth in the form of our Summerland Hills Golf Resort area. And so it's not prudent to take the growth area that you're showing for residential growth and turn it into agriculture without some replacement for that. That's not a reasonable approach. So the entire effort that we went through is to look at this growth and see if the plan that we had was a reasonable plan that we should continue with. And should that land be earmarked for residential growth, or should it be earmarked for some other use? And obviously agriculture is an obvious one. And if that's the case, then where do these homes that we were going to put there, where are they going to go? And that again is the whole idea of this process, is to identify that.
All right, and we have a question for Mr. Waterman. And this is, why in 2005 you commented and argued that the same ALR land was not the greatest. Now today you argue that it is. And the follow-up here is that why are you not open to hearing from residents who are for the proposal?
I'm not open to hearing from them. My email works, my telephone works, so far, well, I pay my bill anyway, so. At any rate, going back to 2005, I argued that we would look at that property out there, and that it needn't go into residential, should stay in the ALR, because the potential it had within 50 to 100 years would be for climate change to have an impact. And so that's why I was looking at in the long term. The ALR is here for long-term consideration. Also, at that time, I remember one of our more senior and colorful vintners proclaimed with considerable enthusiasm that there was no way that you could grow vineyard in that area. And so he carried the day that particular time, and the council voted to take that land out of the ALR. So the flip-flopping is what bothers me. Certainly people can call me. I've had lots of people talk to me at various times, talk to me on the street, stop me on the road when I'm walking, and so on. So anybody wants to talk to me can talk to me. I've even gone into people's offices and talked to individuals that I know. We've been totally at odds philosophically, but we've been able to sit down and chat. So, for whatever reason they're not getting through, I'll have to talk to my staff about that.
I think in fairness, all of the council has had a lot of people talk to them, so we all take emails, we all talk to people, so it's been there.
Why aren't we planning to grow our commercial revenue instead of the residential?
We're doing both. The whole idea is doing both, and that's what the industrial area at Bentley Road. Remember, again, $3 for every $1 for the residential. Of course we want to grow our industrial growth and our business growth. That's very effective. It's absolutely what pays the taxes, and when they're paying that much more, that's what you want to do because they can help us to get there. So I'll pass this over to Robert Hacking.
Just zoning a property commercial does not generate a successful business out of it. It requires a multi-pronged approach. It requires a proper customer base. It requires the proper labor force for it. So we could zone, if we wanted to really be specious, we could just zone the whole thing commercial and collect taxes, but I don't think you'd see any commercial development there.
Thank you. Big picture question. If we use all of our prime agricultural land for housing, how will we feed people in the future?
Well, that's a good question, but I think there's a lot of prime industrial land, and certainly we have been made very clearly tonight that if you put water to the land, suddenly the land that's out in the Summerland Hills makes a very big difference, and particularly to someone who wants it to grow their grapes. So for me, that's a good, solid business, and that's the direction that we should be looking. As far as food security, I think there's lots of food security. We have done very well in this province. We will continue to do well. I don't see a food security issue at all. That's one of those things. People, if you're afraid that your food security, no matter what we do, it's not going to be enough. There are always going to be worries about that. But Penticton doesn't worry about that. They never discuss those kinds of things, and I don't think that we need to worry about it either. I think that we're in good shape. When I'm talking food security, they've got agricultural land all around them. In the core of town, that's where they grow their families, and that's what we have been proposing to do. You really don't want to put your homes outside of your agricultural land. To sprawl to that extent is not effective. So it's either you grow from the core or you don't grow at all. And that's okay too. If that's what people want, that's okay too.
All right, thank you. Since density is to be increased, what provisions in the plan provide for urban gardens and accessible market gardens?
Ian, do you want to talk about neighborhood
Sure.
plans?
There's going to be, we'll see, I guess, if the plan moves forward and the Land Commission gives us some opportunities, that's when we start with the neighborhood planning process and all those questions. There's been lots of talk of a linear park along Indias Creek because there's riparian values in there. There's been lots of talk of different housing types and forms. There's been talk of parkland and talk of urban gardens and talk of lots of things. And for a planner, that's a pretty exciting palette to be able to work with. But that kind of work will not begin because it takes a lot of time and effort and money if there's no response or no land to plan. So that will be forthcoming depending on how this bylaw amendment is received by council both and by the Land Commission.
Here's a question for you, Mr. McIntosh. Considering market conditions and competition from other municipalities in the valley, is it more profitable for the district to encourage new residential construction in the valley or on the hills?
I don't believe there's any question at all that it's way more cost effective and more easy to maintain to do it to promote growth and housing in the valley bottom for certain. Heading up into the hillsides is incredibly expensive. It's incredibly difficult on the land to create roads on steep slopes and all the scarring and blasting. It's just very incredibly difficult and invasive. So if you can grow in the flat close to your town core, that makes tons of sense. And that's what we've done up until we hit the agricultural land reserve boundary. And if you look at our urban growth area, all the way around the core, it is right up against the ALR boundary. So the question that was asked before that I kind of wanted to weigh in on was, is the choice no growth or sprawling outwards? Is there any other opportunity? And the short answer is no. We are either infilling only, which showed the 295 lot potential under the current rules, unless we want to change the rules, or you sprawl out into very expensive infrastructure extensions, which hasn't worked and I don't think will work, or you expand into the area around the core, which in our case is ALR land, when there's an opportunity to put other land that people do want to farm in and make an exchange. And if you don't take that very unique opportunity when it comes to you, then we are either infilling only or we're sprawling beyond the ALR boundary, which is unaffordable. It's as simple as that.
A few years ago, this land was taken out of the ALR. Why is it now good enough to be put back into the ALR?
I would like to speak to that one. The land that was taken out of the ALR back when the Summerland Hills Golf Resort was being considered was to allow for a residential and golf resort opportunity. That's why it was taken out. That was where the urban growth was going to go. That's where it was earmarked for, and the Land Commission and the Council of the day allowed that to happen for that purpose. That purpose now is not going to happen. We all know that. So the question is, can we now put that land back in and trade it for some land that could be developed, that's in close to the core and goes up against the Blair Bluff, which on the agricultural capability map is the boundary between the Class 2 land and the Class 3 land? That's the question. If it doesn't, then we're left with the infill opportunities, which are fine, and we've always had. But that's why the land was taken out before. That was for residential development. It had agricultural value at that time. And we're talking about putting that land back in because it hasn't worked for residential development. And look at a different residential opportunity that may happen.
All right, please help us better understand the opportunity cost of sacrificing 199 acres of prime ALR farmland for residential housing. Have you properly explored and evaluated how a farming and agri-tourism model on this land could benefit the community?
Well, I don't want to give Ian an opportunity to answer this, but the fact is we're not sacrificing. We are allowing people to continue to farm as long as they want. This is talking about the future, as I said, before. But the other part of this is that we are making sure that we maintain the same amount of acreage. What has really irritated me province-wide is that land is being removed from the Agricultural Land Reserve and not being put back in. This was not about a swap. I wanted to make sure that we had what we originally had and we can look at more out in that area in the future. So that's where that was. You certainly cannot consider it good for tourism for people to come into town and see a good portion of our stores in the downtown to be closed, up for rent or up for lease. I mean, that can't be effective tourism. So, I don't think that people come here as tourists and walk around, that particular area and say, gee, this is what makes me come here. It's a combination of things. And if we can have our agriculture remain the same all around us and grow our families in town, I think that's a far more effective way to go. Ian, do you want to respond to that?
Yes, I do. I think that the agritourism opportunities to turn Prairie Valley West into a vineyard, particularly if it ended up being a dirty laundry vineyard, far exceed the agritourism potential for the lands that are in the Quinpool, Blair Bluff, and Marble Cook area.
Would the City of Summerland, District of Summerland, consider purchasing the underdeveloped farmland in question and run it as a business such as a co-op to grow food?
Well, I don't know why we would do it. If the people there don't want to give up the farming, we certainly don't want to take it away from them. They can farm as long as they want. And we, as a community, cannot afford to do any kind of purchase like that. There's just no money for it. I mean, if we had the extra money, we would be doing things maybe to the downtown core, but, you know, there's no money. Ian, do you want to respond any further to that?
No.
This question is about the urban growth area and the OCP review, which sought public consultation based on the survey. Why were survey respondents not asked directly if they would support an ALR exclusion / swap?
I can answer that one. And the reason that question wasn't asked on the survey is because we hadn't anticipated that question. What we thought was we would provide all these different areas for people to pick from, and if they didn't want to go into the ALR, they would simply tell us that in the survey. And it wasn't until the survey results came back and that eventuality unfolded that this idea of why wouldn't we ask if you wanted or didn't want to have ALR excluded, because that we weren't expecting that eventuality. We ended up asking a survey saying, here's the 13 pieces of land, you tell us where you think you should grow, here's the criteria, and leave it at that, and that's what we got.
Will there be green spaces in the new development?
Absolutely, and that's the part when you actually have controlled growth, where you have an area where you can control it, you can put in pathways, because we think that Enos Creek should have a pathway right down to the lake. I mean, that's been sort of a dream that's been talked about over and over again. But also, definitely parks and recreational centers, community gardens, absolutely. But, you know, that's up to the council of the day, who is ever there, but I'm certain that they would go for that. I mean, I can't see that not being part of the plan. Ian, do you want to?
I think it would be incredibly exciting doing neighborhood planning for that area if it ever came to be. And a linear trail all the way down Enos Creek to the lake, I think would be incredible for this community to take a blank palette and do all. I mean, I've seen some amazing development, residential developments down at the coast. We go to the Planning Institute of BC every year. We do a tour every year, and there are some incredible residential developments all around BC. And it would be pretty exciting to get in on one of those here in Summerland.
Looks like we're going to take a very quick break, if that's all right with everyone. Give you a chance to stretch your legs. Just a very short break, just a couple of minutes. So you can stick around. Thank you very much. We have many more questions to get to. Remove ourselves from the room by 9:30, which means we'll go till 9:25, so we can clear up our tables and stuff. Thanks for sticking around. Trying to get to as many of these questions as we can. Apologize if we haven't gotten your questions, but we do have quite a few of them. And a reminder, April 22nd, you'll be able to voice your opinions on the microphone at the public meeting. All right, another question from the floor. Why did specific agribusinesses, Mountain View and Dirty Laundry, get a chance to speak tonight if there is yet to be a public bidding process to purchase the municipally owned land in Prairie Valley?
Maybe Tom, can you answer that question?
Why did specific agribusinesses have an opportunity to speak tonight if there is yet to be a public bidding process to purchase the municipally owned land in Prairie Valley?
A number of the questions that we've received over the last little while indicated there was a doubt that in fact that land was suitable for agriculture. And so we invited two firms that were specifically interested in agribusinesses to show to the community that in fact it has potential for agriculture and there's legitimate interest in that.
This one I believe is somewhat of a follow-up. Given that the district currently owns most of the land in the proposed swap zone, is there anything legally preventing council from facilitating the move of these agribusinesses to Prairie Valley?
Facilitating, I think in terms of facilitation, we are going to facilitate by, once council decides that we'll proceed with an RFP, and so that's facilitating it. And I think as Ian McIntosh pointed out earlier, the only thing that's hindering it is the fact that that's where we're designated to grow, and so we'd have no growth area if we let that go without changing the plan.
What would the homes proposed for the ALR area likely cost?
No one will be able to answer that. It depends on the form of development. I think the whole intent of this is the commonsensical view that land close to existing services is going to be less expensive to develop than land many kilometers away from existing services. Therefore, lots will be able to be sold cheaper and should provide a new market opportunity for future residents of Summerland.
Thank you. What is the cost to taxpayers in Summerland to provide the needed amenities and accommodate the agribusinesses that we mentioned in Prairie Valley?
I think Ian actually already answered that. We will have to look at how, if this proceeds, how we're going to set up the RFP, whether there'll be services provided by the municipality or we offer it unserviced, and obviously that will dictate our market returns.
This one here says, this is a plan for growth for 30 to 50 years from now. How does it help downtown now?
I can answer that one. And the growth strategy was not an effort to help the downtown now. The growth strategy effort was to say the strategy we currently have is not reasonable or relevant, and we need to have another better thought out and community engaged growth plan. How we're going to help downtown is a whole different exercise that we're also undertaking separate from this.
Thank you. Here's one for the mayor. Why does the idea or prospect of a referendum on the specific issue of an application to remove prime agricultural land from the ALR get dismissed by the mayor out of hand?
It certainly should not be dismissed by any one person at the council table. If a member doesn't want to bring that forward, we can vote on that as a group. But I wanted to be clear with you that I am personally against it. I think referendums are absolutely appropriate when we're borrowing money. And I certainly don't want to make it an election issue, because when you are electing your council, you need to think how they're going to deal with the 1,000 issues that we're going to see over the course of our terms. So it's never one issue that should get a person elected. And remember, in the 1996, 2008 OCPs, we did not have a referendum. We didn't have a referendum for the Wharton Street, and we didn't have a referendum for the Summerland Hills Golf Resort, which was the largest proposal ever done in our entire history, with 1,000 homes. I mean, this is considerably a smaller area. So that issue is actually more contentious than this one, believe it or not. So yeah, we didn't have a referendum back then. That's why I wouldn't support it today.
What percentage of currently zoned ALR land is currently forested or otherwise unused?
I can't tell you exactly, but I can tell you we have a slide that kind of shows that right here. So we have 2190 or 5,411 acres in the ALR. We have 5,004 acres zoned for ag use. So those numbers are not the same. So there's a bunch of land that's zoned for ag use that is not in the ALR, and we have some land in the ALR that's zoned for other uses. How much is forested? I don't have that information.
Why not develop the properties like the RCMP building or the packing house area before the ALR?
Well, we're actually looking at a proposal for the RCMP, the old site. The packing house, of course, is owned by the packing house, so it's up to them.
Yeah, we're definitely, as the planning department, we believe infill is by far the best choice, and we're continuing to work on that as hard as we can. But that is not, in our view, enough to sustain us for very long, given the numbers that we've shown you. So this growth strategy is to show where people will go, as well as the infill. So if people if nobody moves to Summerland, then we don't have to worry. If people do move to Summerland, where are we going to put them? That's the question.
Will the district commit to setting the standards for a LEED neighborhood as opposed to any old neighborhood that suits the developer's needs?
I can answer that one. I think it's a bit dangerous to say that it will be a LEED neighborhood. That is a brand, and that's a very, very expensive brand to meet. And we learned that with our water treatment plant, which cost us a great amount of taxpayer dollars to meet a LEED certification. But we certainly would make it green neighborhoods, and we believe that we will be able to meet a green standard, but I don't think that we would look to the LEED brand for that.
This is a bit of a long one, but it looks like an important question. This parent was part of the PAC at Giants Head School and says that they have it in the minutes that they were promised sidewalks on both sides of Prairie Valley Road at that time. The corporation stated that when we went from septic to sewer and they were digging, they would put in sidewalks. Where are they?
Maybe Don Darling would like to answer that one. Don Darling is the director for our Public Works and Utilities Department. Utilities. He's kept quiet the whole night.
Yeah. There was a meeting with the PAC, and we had at that time told them that we were planning on putting sidewalks into Saunders. They had indicated that they wanted them to go all the way to Cartwright, but we did not have the funds. But we are bringing forward a report to council very shortly to put the sidewalks from Saunders to Cartwright on Prairie Valley Road, but only on the one side, and that would be on the north side of the road, because we don't have the funds to put the electrical on the car. So the report's going to council very shortly.
What is meant by high density? What sizes are the lots and how many homes are proposed?
High density is a number that means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. To planners, we don't have any high density development in Summerland. We probably won't in my lifetime. The numbers that we've shown are based on 5 units an acre, which is fairly low density, but that is a gross density. There still has to be roads, there has to be parks, there has to be linear stuff. There's all kinds of things that go into a neighborhood, so that the net density at the end of the day is probably closer to 10 or 15 units per hectare or per acre. For single family, it would be up to 20 units per acre for multifamily, and we expect there might be a mix in the neighborhood, but the neighborhood planning exercise hasn't been undertaken yet.
To the mayor, what are you doing to support the agricultural industry?
I'm not sure how to answer that one. You know, as a district, we try to help out wherever possible. So, for example, I was always really impressed with John Gordon when he came years ago and said, you know, we want to put up this particular signage that all of you are familiar with. And I thought that was such an incredible, you know, and all they needed was a yes. It was so obvious, you know. So those kinds of things we are always in favor of. We have a really difficult time supporting the agricultural businesses because they don't have a business license, so the chamber is somewhat limited what they can do. However, we try as much as possible to let them put signage up so that they can keep going forward with that. Certainly with the Dickinson Farm, when they came to us for an opportunity to do camping on their agricultural, you know, property, we were very much in favor, and we fought hard for that, and that was not popular with everyone. And so, you know, those are the kinds of things that you continue to do, and I do believe that the business of farming is very strong and can be strong, and we as a council are very willing to help out where possible. We're just saying that, you know, this is obviously a different thing, but we're very pleased to help out businesses that work, and you know, we're all very keen to buy wine from our local, you know, wineries. So yeah, I think that it can be said very clearly that council is quite ready to be helpful.
So just a reminder, we have to be out of here at 9:30, so we're going to wrap the meeting up at 9:25 because the school would like to clear us out. There's a question for Mr. Waterman. Considering the cost of a community services study, would council agree that putting heavy emphasis on residential development is the opposite of sustainable growth?
Yes. Repeat that. Essentially, you're saying,
considering the cost of community services, the community services study, would council agree that putting heavy emphasis on residential development is the opposite of sustainable growth?
yes, well, that's my position. And there's, you know, as I mentioned earlier, we've had a report circulating representing 125 different studies across North America that say exactly that the maintenance and refurbishing and renovation of infrastructure is very difficult to do on a residential base. And so I think that's part of the difficulty we've had, is we've got what is it, 82% of our tax base is residential. 79. So it's very difficult to keep up your infrastructure. And you have to do as much as you can to get a commercial, industrial base, and that's one of the reasons why it was mentioned earlier that we're looking at a gravel resource as providing some of that income. But to think that we're going to use use residential growth, new residential growth in an extensive way to actually renovate old infrastructure and take care of new infrastructure is I think problematic. So we have to be very cautious if we move forward, because it's not sustainable in the long term. You have to have a very good balance. And as I mentioned earlier, it's economic activity that drives residential need, and not the other way around. You get a short-term bonus from building houses and so on, and short-term employment, but the major drive has to come from economic growth that will provide the need for residential development.
All right. You on council have all stated your positions. My question is there a possibility of anyone on council changing their position? If so, please explain why.
Thank you. It says when I read this thing at the beginning, I will continue to listen to all on this issue and look forward to making my decision on April the 28th. I have not made a decision. My decision will be made at the council table. It's that date. I'm taking all the information I can possibly take. And I'm just trying to weigh it all out. Some parts of this makes great sense to me. Other parts, the agricultural part is tugging at my heartstrings. I'm a farmer. I was born and raised a farmer. And I'm a farmer today, and I'm proud of it. And it's a difficult decision. And I just want to try to make the best decision for the community. Thank you.
As I mentioned earlier, I've been part of the process. I'm waiting and listening to people, and my decision fully will not be made until the public hearing is completed. But as I stated earlier, I'm interested in hearing compelling arguments on either side of the issue.
I think in fairness, I've heard that kind of comment from all of the council that they very much want to hear all sides. And, we've gone forward with what we have because of the data that we had and the information that we had, and it certainly was a compelling case, but certainly the public hearing on the 22nd will definitely help, and then we have to have time to think about it.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My position is I'm hoping at the end of all this, we'll have a win-win for everyone, and the Agricultural Land Commission will look at the overall bylaw, and they will make their decisions following our vote, whichever way it goes, and we'll go from there. And, this is, like I say, a 50-year growth plan, and that's what we're looking at.
As has been mentioned, is pending any compelling arguments that I have received. I'll take all the information that I have received and will continue to receive. And at the third reading, we'll make the decision I feel is in the best interest of Summerland. And there's been a lot of discussion, a lot of arguments I've received that have tweaked a lot of questions in my head that I've asked the staff and have brought up. And by no means I say my mind's made up on the issue. But at the end of the day, the decision I'll make will be at the third reading, and that decision I feel will be the best one in Summerland's case.
All right, we'd like to thank you very much, especially those of you who stuck around. Thanks to the media, thanks to Mayor and Council, and to the staff as well.
Thank you very much.
And remember, April 22nd, you can share your